play a game?
Why, yes, I believe we shall.
Oh, I got a live one here.
Getting geeky all up in your podcast. It's Shane Plays Geek Talk, a journey into the things we love. I'm your host, Shane Stacks. Thanks so much for pressing play. And today, I think this is a first for Shane Plays. I've had people from different countries and areas of the world on before, but I think this is the first time I've had somebody on from Australia. So you're a record setter, David. You're the first Australian that I know of, especially in the Australian time zone in Sydney, Australia, to join Shane Plays Geek Talk. So thanks so much, folks. This is David Finn of the Signal of Doom. You have to say it like that. You can't say Signal. You got to say Signal of Doom podcast.
Well, thank you, man.
David, yeah, it's cool. Glad to have you on. You say it like that, right? Just you say
me. Yeah, I mean, I'm always like, well, hello, and welcome to Signal of Doom. That's how I say it when I open up the podcast every week. And Shane, can I just say, what a pleasure to be on your show. I've been listening for at least a couple of years, and always a pleasure, man. I must say, you do a great show. I've actually pinched some of your guests over the years.
Go for it. Yeah, go for it. They're not mine. They're everybody's.
No, but you get great guests, like a wide range with the whole role playing thing that you do. And I just think it's just a lot of fun. So it's an absolute pleasure to be on. So thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad to have you on. I like your podcast. I also, as you know, podcasting, I mean, I do it because it's fun, but you're always like, are other people liking it? And, you're one of those people that always is checking in and saying, hey, I enjoyed this episode and giving good feedback. So I appreciate that a lot. That, as you know, that helps keep the wind in the sails.
Sure.
But yeah, for the Signal of Doom podcast, I would say that you're a kind of a general geek interest show, but you have areas of focus. So you're like Shane Plays in that, like I could just camp out on one niche and just build the audience, but I'd get bored if I just talked about the same thing every week. So I like to talk about the stuff that I think is fun, which is why I'll talk about comic books. I'll talk about movies. I'll talk about role-playing games. I'll talk about, a couple of months ago, I talked about Stratomatic sports simulation, because that's a lot of there's a big geeky following for that, but two, there's people that argue that has DNA leading into role-playing games. So I like to talk about a lot of different stuff, but I will say I want to direct people to your interview with Ed Greenwood, because Ed Greenwood is a nice guy. Yeah, Ed's a nice guy. He's very available for podcasts and interviews. So I've heard him on a lot of different podcasts. Your interview with him, in my opinion, was the best interview I've heard with him. You went into areas that people don't normally go.
We did two interviews with him. And let me tell you, we got to the bottom of the Undermountain. He told us what's at the bottom.
What's that? I don't remember that. What's at the bottom?
Well, I'll tell you.
We'll save it to the end of the episode. People have to listen. No, I'm not going to do that.
Ed was a fantastic guy to chat to. Yeah. I think we did 3 hours with Ed, and then at the end,
he's a nice guy.
He's such a nice guy. And then at the end, he said, "Do you want to just hang out and talk for a bit more?" And I was exhausted. Just a lovely guy. And
he really is.
Yeah, so he was a pleasure.
But yeah, your interview with him, maybe it was both. I listened to both of them, but
Thanks,
I can't remember if I listened to both back to back or whatever. But I know I listened, and I was like, that's one of the best interviews I've ever heard with Ed Greenwood.
Thanks, well, I enjoy the interviews. I enjoy, because in our regular show, we do focus on a lot of geeky things. Plus, Bob Dylan and Frank Sinatra news, if there's any, always gets a mention. If Bob Dylan's doing anything in the world, that generally gets a mention if he surfaces. And anything Sinatra related obviously gets a mention. But Yeah, but I do interviews nowhere near as regularly as you because I find I have to do a lot of research for interviews, and but they're fun. I really enjoy the interviewing. It's a good time.
Yeah, I like to. I don't know. Interviews are great.
They're cool.
Especially when it's somebody that like I personally, am like a geeky fanboy on.
Oh yeah.
I've had to tone that down because I had a couple of people on earlier when I first started, and I fanboyed so hard the interviews were terrible. Because I was like, I'm just a fanboy. So I had to learn. And as you talk to these folks over time, they're just people like
100%.
They're and a matter of fact, like Ed Greenwood is he's very down to earth. Like he's kept his full-time job all this time.
I know.
Right?
I know
he's a librarian. Yeah, and he's so anyway, all right, well let's I guess dig in. What we're going to do is we've both brought some fun geeky tacos. No, it's not Taco Tuesday. We're actually recording on Thursday, March 14th for me, Friday, March 15th for you, early in the future. Because you're in Sydney, which means that all you do all day long is you hang out in front of the Opera House. I mean, no stereotyping here.
No stereotyping. Throw shrimp on the Barbie for sure.
Yeah, throw shrimp on the Barbie.
Of course. Yeah. And I've got my knife, of course.
Yeah, you got this is a knife. Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. So, yeah, no, I know. Yeah. You're in the Sydney area in Australia.
Yep.
We're no stereotyping. We're not.
I think
shrimps,
Aussies often welcome the stereotyping, so it's fine. Don't worry about us. Yeah. We don't mind.
But I've always, why would you put a shrimp on a girl's doll? I've never understood that.
No,
I'm joking, of course.
Yeah, I was like, huh? I was like, are you actually confused by this?
No, it's the Barbie is, of course, the barbecue.
Yeah, the barbecue.
But you've probably heard this before from other Americans. I mean, the Australian accent comes across very laid back and easygoing to us.
Sure.
So yeah, it's just so I don't know. I know to you it just sounds like normal, right? Because that's whatever.
I mean, you hear it in there's a show recently, NCIS. You know NCIS? Yeah. So they launched NCIS Sydney, with it's a spin-off here, and it's actually kind of advertisement, for the American Australian like alliance and like all the ships or whatever they have, their military alliance. But they so it's kind of an ad for that, but the Australians in the show, even to me, have a very broad Australian accent because they're not disguising it. They're really letting it loose. Do you know what I mean?
They're letting the Australian out. Right.
Yeah, because that's the whole point of the show, that there's a few Americans there for NCIS and they're teaming up with the Australians who are like the federal police here. And, even to my ears, you're like, wow, they're really leaning into it. Like there's a lot of, g'day, mate, they're every single little code word or whatever that you would use, they throw them all into every sentence, So,
yeah.
It's kind of funny.
Yeah. No, look, really, we're Australian.
Yeah, definitely. You're in Australia.
We're so Australian. Yeah. I bet you everybody else thinks you're personal buddies with Paul Hogan. So, like everybody knows Paul Hogan, right?
Great Australian export. Up there with Hugh Jackman. My favorite one. Our goal.
Yeah.
Our goal on Signal is to get Hugh Jackman for an interview, actually.
Is it really?
I'm a big Wolverine fan, man. And I just think he's just done so much for Australia and for everything like that. Like he's just been, I just think he's absolutely awesome, and what he's done as Wolverine and what he's done with all his other stuff. He's such a great ambassador for the country,
That's great. Yeah. I listened to an interview with him on Tim Ferriss, I think. If you ever listen to Tim Ferriss goes deep, and he wants to deconstruct some successful people. Hugh Jackman was like a singer stage kind of guy. And this this traipse off into Wolverine was a complete left field for him.
Yeah.
But he did it, and then it just went. But he's more of a with his background, he's more of a greatest showman guy.
Yeah, like he did Boy from Oz, which was the Peter Allen thing. Who was a singer. I don't know if you know him, but he was a pretty popular singer in the 70s and 80s, Australian, and he did a lot of Broadway and stuff. And he did Boy from Oz, like that show. And that was probably his first big thing. And then Wolverine was a thing where he just went, into the stratosphere.
Yeah, well, he's so good at Wolverine, he really
fantastic.
is. I mean, I remember going to see the first X-Men movie at the theater. This is before comic book movies have blown up. This was when only real geeks were like, I've got to go see X-Men.
It was even before Spider-Man 1. It was before Spider-Man 1.
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I remember thinking, wow, they really nailed Wolverine. Like that feels like Wolverine to me. Yeah. Out of all the characters, I would say Professor X and Wolverine seemed the most like,
100%.
And there were other people doing good jobs, but I was like, they nailed Wolverine.
Yeah.
And I mean, basically Patrick Stewart. Patrick Swayze was not Professor X. Patrick Stewart was. He was practically born to play Professor X. I mean, he was perfect.
I know. So, he was just absolutely perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. So now we've got we got the Wolverine Deadpool coming, which I'm sure
can't wait, man. You don't know how excited I am for this movie because I'm a huge Deadpool fan, a huge Wolverine fan, and I just think also, like, let's be brutally honest, Marvel needs a big hit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They need a crowd pleaser. They've been putting out what I would describe as very tepid, very poor movies for a while. And, no one's excited for Ant-Man 4. Let me tell you that much. There's no excitement. And I saw the Marvel.
Like, I'll watch it, but I'm not, with bated breath for it, right?
Dude, I saw the Marvels, and we all agreed that may have been one of the worst movies I've seen in 30 years.
My thing with the Marvels was, like, it felt average, but the scene with the what do they call they look like cats, but they're really
I know the things, whatever they're called. Yeah, I don't know what they're
I can't
called,
believe I've forgotten what they're called. But the scene where they're eating all the shield people, I have to say, was extremely funny. But the rest of the movie was like, okay, it's a movie.
Dude, the Singing Planet, I thought was one of the poorest things I've seen.
Yeah, that was weird, wasn't it? Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say is that Marvel need a big hit, and I think Deadpool 3 is going to be that hit.
Right.
I really do.
Is it not? Is it a Sony MCU venture or is it all Sony?
No, it's a full Marvel. Marvel bought Fox. Disney bought Fox. So it's a full Marvel thing.
Duh. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it'll be full
and
Kevin Feige or whatever.
Have you seen the trailer where Deadpool comes in and they bring him in from his Fox universe and he sees all the characters playing out in the Marvel cinematic universe? Like, he's aware that they're in movies and stuff. And he's like, I am the Marvel Jesus and all this. It's awesome. So I'm looking so forward to it, man. And you saw the outline of I don't know if you're familiar with Wolverine. Do you know Patch when he was in?
Yeah,
Madripoor?
Sure. Yeah, when he was in Madripoor.
Yeah, and in the trailer you see, and I've kind of got the hair at the moment, where you see from the behind with the hair, and he's in the tuxedo, so he's like Patch in Madripoor. Right. I mean, I'm just so down for it, Now it's theirs to lose because all the ingredients are there for a 100%. Hit, right? So, no doubt. But yeah, I think talking about Marvel, I think we could, we have topics we brought, but we can throw this. We could throw this on the Barbie and cook it a little bit. Let's start on the Barbie.
Marvel. I still think Marvel is putting out okay stuff. I think they're a victim of their previous success. So. Right. Like, the stuff now is like, compared to most other offerings that other people are putting out, people are like, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
But when you hold it up next to the first 10 years of Marvel or the first whatever that culminated with Endgame, I could see why people are like, what is this? Because, the first arc or whatever, phase 1 through phase 4 had such a strong through line.
Yeah.
And it was like they were hitting on all cylinders. And now they're doing stuff where I think they're not playing it safe, which I give them credit for that. Like Loki not playing it safe,
Yeah,
doing something different. WandaVision, not playing it safe, doing
that was a
something
good
different.
one. WandaVision was a really good one.
WandaVision was excellent, and I thought the first season was Loki was great. I haven't seen the second season yet.
Yeah.
So some of the TV Secret Invasion, I don't know if you watched that or not. That felt a little dull to me.
Awful.
Yeah, it felt dull. It did not feel like Marvel. It felt like I don't know what, especially with Sam Jackson in there.
Well, and dude, I don't know if you ever read the comic book of Secret Invasion, but it's so good, you know. And they just neutered the story, and it felt like there was about 6 Skrulls. You know what I mean?
yeah, right. Yeah, there were 6 Skrulls with personalities, and the rest were all just hanging out at an old nuclear reactor.
Yeah,
right? So
I really disliked that one. I also thought Captain America: Winter Soldier was okay, but it could have been a lot.
It was a great buddy cop movie, right?
But it could have been better, you know.
It could have, but I liked the interplay between the two main characters,
Me too.
right? Like I believed it. Like these guys really don't like each other, but they're kind of coming to respect each other. I believed it. And I did like Sam Wilson assuming, like I'm Steve Rogers all the way, but if Rogers is out of the picture,
sure.
Sam Wilson is, I mean, I liked him assuming the role of Captain America.
Yeah.
I thought he did a good job with it.
I am looking forward to this movie that they ever do, this Captain America 4 with him. I've heard, and I don't know.
Is that where they're doing Dark Avengers? Are they doing Dark Avengers?
I'm not sure. You know who's in it? You know who's one of the villains? The leader. You know, from the Hulk?
Yeah.
Do you know the guy with the big head? Yeah.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Because I love the Hulk, man. And,
I do too.
And I'm hoping that Hulk might get like a cameo if they're going to use the leader, you know, in Captain America.
Well, so here's the thing. Speaking of the Hulk, the leader appeared in one of the other Marvel movies. I can't.
He was. I can tell you what he was
Ang
Lee very briefly in Incredible Hulk. That
was the one with Branagh, right?
No.
That was the one with right.
Right. Basically, he's a scientist, like a bit of a dodgy scientist, and he gets injected with, I assume, gamma stuff, and you see his head grow big.
Yeah, see his head going up, right.
Yeah, so it's that actor. It's that actor. They're bringing him back for that.
Well, they brought back the
Thunderbolt Ross?
Well, him, but also from the Incredible Hulk movie we were just talking about with the leader.
Yeah.
The guy that they injected with the stuff in the Abomination, they brought him into the She-Hulk series. So,
and he was excellent.
He was great.
Yeah.
And I thought he was good in that.
I actually liked, I know it's controversial, I actually liked the She-Hulk series, even though the special effects were average. I liked the series. I thought it was fun.
The longest run of She-Hulk comic books, if I understand correctly, was the John Byrne stuff, where he was breaking the fourth wall, where he was, literally She-Hulk would talk to her editor, right? Yeah. And stuff like that. And so that show leaned 100% into that, you know.
I thought it was funny. Any problem. I thought it was funny, man. Like, although my girlfriend, who's like massively, fiance actually, I'm about to get married.
Congratulations on that, by the way. I know you got your marriage coming up.
Thanks. We've been together for 16 years, so we're finally making it official.
Yeah, you're like, all right, we'll do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, so she knows nothing about comics. I don't think she's ever read a comic, but she does watch the movies. But her reaction when I said She-Hulk, she was like, "She-Hulk, really?" Like, that's how desperate they are. She thought it had just been created yesterday. I go, she's been around. Yeah. I went into for defense.
No, she's been around since the 70s or early 80s.
But like a lot of casuals who don't know, they just think, oh, really, Marvel are getting desperate. Just She-Hulk. They're just like, really, that's the best they could do. So it's kind of funny when you get stuff us comic fans know, like off the drop of a hat. You know what I mean? Like, we're like, oh, we know She-Hulk's been around for ages.
Yeah, but the average person doesn't.
They've got no idea. You know, and
that's why
them at times, you know.
But that's why it's so funny that the MCU kicked off with Iron Man, because for comic book readers, Iron Man's been around, but a lot of people are like, Iron Man, why are they what? And then because he was a B, he was high C, low B, I guess, for the mainstream audience.
100%.
I've always been a big Iron Man fan, but
first comic I ever bought with my own money was Iron Man. First comic I ever bought.
Do you remember which one it was? Do you remember which one?
I can tell you that it was the David Michelini run, and it was in Armor Wars when him and Cap have a little push and shove.
Right.
And so it was right around there. It was. I don't know the issue number, but it was basic. I've actually David Michelini has done some good answers for the show on Iron Man, because I always praise him so heavily. I'm like, you're the guy. When I got into comics, it was your Iron Man I was reading for a good 2 years, and I built up my knowledge of the Marvel Universe. Because when you go in and then you see all the different characters pop in and out, you're like, oh, I've got to buy that comic. Like Wolverine shows up, I've got to go buy that. Oh, there's Hulk. And you sort of spin off. But Iron Man was, ironically, and I don't know why, because I didn't even know who he was. I just liked the look of him. And Bob Layton was the artist.
Bob Layton is one of my favorite. Definitely my favorite Iron Man artist. But I just love his look.
Easily. Brilliant.
Yeah. I follow him on like Instagram, and he's constantly pumping out, hey, I did this, I did that. He'll recreate.
He's very prolific.
Yeah.
Very prolific.
Yeah. Yeah, but now his stuff, as far as I'm concerned, he is the Iron Man artist, just because I am printed on that.
And that Centurion, that Silver Centurion armor, that's my favorite Iron Man armor ever.
I remember buying the issue number 200 where that premiered. I remember them building up to it. They kept teasing it.
Yeah. And
then issue 200, it premiered, and he fought the Ironmonger. That's where Obadiah Stane's Ironmonger was first introduced. So
awesome.
Great issue. Yeah, they'd been teasing that Silver Centurion armor. Like he would use like a glove from it in issue 197 or a boot. And I mean, they had the art of the tease down cold, because I was hooked. I couldn't wait to see this armor. Going back to the MCU, and then I'll move us forward. So one thing I am disappointed on, I really wanted in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which I liked Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. The guy they had for Fantastic.
What's his name? John Krasinski or something? Is that right?
Yeah. I was like, okay, I'm sold. And then I guess that didn't happen.
They killed them all. They killed the whole Illuminati. It was sucked.
Yeah, but they were alternate universe Illuminati.
I know,
so
but it was exciting to see them.
And not only did he kill them, they killed them brutally.
Well, I was really saddened by Professor X and Reed Richards dying like that. I actually thought, I actually said, Michelle was next to me. I go, they're not going to kill Professor X, surely. And then he died, and I was like, no.
Snapped his neck, man.
Man, that was brutal.
Yeah,
that was brutal.
He lost a psychic battle with the Scarlet Witch. So,
I'm still not
he was
happy
doing
about
that. She just popped. Well, I think they were just establishing, no, seriously, she's bad.
She's badass.
So, but we do get Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards, so we'll see how that goes. But I was sold on John Krasinski. I was like, perfect.
Good.
This is perfect.
He was good.
Anyway,
he was very good.
And then I did want to say I did watch the Echo series. I don't know if you've watched that or not.
I haven't, because I have almost no interest.
So here's my take on that. It's a fantastic show.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel overly comic booky, right? I want if I watch MCU, I want to see comic booky stuff, right? Sure. I mean, that's just me as the geek. But the show itself, fantastic.
Okay.
I thought so. It was a lot of, they almost could have taken the MCU out of it.
Yeah, right.
And had a show that stood on its own.
I might, based on that, I might check it out just by myself. Why not?
I thought it was good. Your mileage may vary, as they say.
I'm pretty forgiving in general, man. I'm as a viewer, sometimes I'm like, I'll throw it on. You know what I mean? I don't, care too much. Yeah, no,
if you're interested in the Kingpin's arc at all in the MCU, then this is a pretty heavy. Even though he's not the main character by any means, this is still a pretty heavy entry for him.
Oh, I'm interested in him. Yeah, so Vincent D'Onofrio. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, no, he's perfect. I mean, when he showed up in Daredevil years ago, I was like, wow, what great casting! And there's that scene. My wife even was like, whoa. I mean, I think it almost gave her nightmares where. I don't know if you remember, it was early on in the original Daredevil years ago, where the Kingpin smashed that dude's head in the car door. Yeah, I mean, that just perfectly shows, because like Kingpin, and Echo does a good job of this too. On the surface, he's very smooth, he's very refined, but when he doesn't get his way, or if he's upset, the evil just
he's animalistic if he doesn't get his way.
Yeah, right.
He drops the facade. Totally. He's such a good performance. I think he's perfect as Kingpin.
No, he did great. Yeah,
I'm looking forward to the Daredevil show. The Daredevil show.
Yeah,
again.
Yeah,
which has my man Frank Castle, Punisher, in there.
I'm a big Punisher fan. Punisher, to me. Finish your thought, and then I'll go off on Punisher. But you were talking about the new Daredevil show coming, and it's got Frank Castle in it.
That I'm really looking forward to it.
Is it going to be the same actor? Is it going to be
John Bernthal?
Okay. Yeah. He's perfect. He's perfect.
He is, for me. He is the Punisher, and I'm just looking so forward to this show. And I'm just a huge Punisher fan. So, and I like Daredevil, and I'm like, bring it on.
Yeah.
Regarding Born Again.
Yeah, well, right. Yeah, Born Again was like the classic Daredevil arc. I mean, you can't, if you put Daredevil and Frank Miller together, forget it. You can't go wrong. Yeah.
Genius.
Yeah. Good stuff. So, like one of my memories of Frank Miller's run was, there was that thing where for a while Matt Murdock just disappeared, and he was practically homeless after the Kingpin destroyed his life, right?
Yes.
Because Karen Page sold out his secret identity for a hit of heroin.
Karen Page is going through a rough day.
A rough patch, dude. Yeah. So she sold his identity out for a hit of heroin,
heroin. That's all it took.
Yeah. And I love it. So instead of Kingpin like having him murdered, he destroys his life. He destroys his finances. He destroys his reputation, whatever. And
easily, too. Pretty easily.
Yeah. It's like suddenly his credit cards don't work and his utilities are getting shut off. And I mean, the Kingpin just tears him down.
And Foggy's just like, it's too hard. We can't help him. Like, he just,
right. Yeah,
it's quite the fall.
Yeah, immediate. Yeah, but it was, of course, to set up the Born Again where he comes back. But during that time, he's almost homeless. And there's a scene where Ben Urich, that investigative reporter, meets somebody for lunch, and they're at this diner, and it's packed. And Ben's like, we came here because usually it's not busy here. But suddenly it's busy, and he's like, man, this is an amazing burger. And it turns out Matt Murdock is a short order cook at this diner, but because of his senses, he could cook the perfect burger. But they don't never come out and spell it out for you. You have to put those pieces together, which is just a great, a great moment of Frank Miller's writing.
That run on Daredevil, and I'm not even the biggest Daredevil fan. That run on Daredevil is amongst my top shelf of the comics that I've read.
It's easily up there. People talk about Watchmen, and they talk about Dark Knight Returns, and they talk about some other stuff from the time that sort of elevated the medium, if you will. It was Frank Miller and David Mazzucchelli, if I remember right.
I believe the team correct, on that.
Yes. And you can't touch it. Yeah, which is interesting because Frank Miller also did Dark Knight Returns, and he also did Batman Year One, which are all considered like just made. But anyway, so I want to go back to Punisher, and then we're going to get to our topics. We haven't even got to our topics yet. We've been going 30 minutes, which I love. This is exactly what I love. Geeking out. So Frank, I love the Punisher. I don't love the Punisher because he kills people. That's not what attracts me. He is like willpower personified. He's like, I have a mission. You're not going to stop me. So him and Batman actually have a lot in common. If Batman used guns, he would be very sick. He's like, you're just not going to stop me. You're not going to talk me out of my mission.
100%.
You're not going to this. You're not going to that. And it's just this, amazing, indomitable. If you gave Frank Castle a Green Lantern ring, the glow
look
would.
out.
I mean, you couldn't look because his willpower.
Look out, criminals! If that happens.
Yeah, right. Well, so it kind of reminded me of why I love the Punisher, because not that long ago, it's not Jason Aaron. I'd have to go look up the writer.
It was Jason
Matthew
Aaron
Rosenberg.
who sent him off to Fantasyland. Yeah.
Well, I'm talking about that. So Matthew Rosenberg.
Oh yeah.
Took the Punisher and put him in the War Machine armor.
It's pretty cool.
And that was one of the most beautiful things that's happened in recent years in comics. And it reminded me of just why I love the character, because, Nick Fury's like, hey, I'm going to loan you this War Machine armor so you can do this one thing.
Yeah.
And Frank's like, okay. And then he's like, there's no way I'm giving this armor back.
Frank was great. And Frank was great. That was one of Frank's greatest moments.
It was that run. I mean, that turned me into a Matthew Rosenberg fan, but it also reminded me because he's just indomitable.
Matthew Rosenberg's an underrated writer, man. He's an underrated writer, Matthew Rosenberg. He did a good job with that Punisher. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, very good. But, it reminded you, because some people, they're average. They're not going to do anything. You stick them in the War Machine armor, and they're going to do more.
Yeah.
Frank Castle's already a total force to be reckoned with. All the War Machine armor did was multiply him.
Oh, totally. It gave him like superpowers in the best way, but technology, and it was a really good run. It actually,
I loved it.
People sleep on that run because a lot of the more modern Punisher hasn't really been that great, but that's a real highlight of the last.
Well, I don't think they know what to do with Frank Castle, because people these days aren't as comfortable with somebody who's just like, I'm going to kill everybody.
You know what they should do?
And not have any remorse.
They should place a call to Chuck Dixon and say, Chuck, come back.
Yeah, Chuck, come back.
Yeah, and he could come back.
Chuck, I don't think Chuck wants to work for the, what I know following him. He's like, I'm done with him.
He's doing fine himself. But seriously, and the guys like him and Mike Barron, they lived and breathed. You know what I mean? And
you're talking my language, man. Yeah. Chuck Dixon, Mike Barron, all those guys that now are, like, it's hard for them to get work unless they're like, hey, we want you to do a nostalgia issue for a cash grab.
And Chuck Dixon's been on the show probably 10 times of Signal, more like 20 times. And we love him. But seriously, those guys got Punisher, they got Frank Castle,
right?
And it's not like it's overly complex. I think that's one of the things. Right. Like, he's essentially a pretty primal, simple character, which you can plunge into situations, and he becomes the Punisher, and he's just inside a situation. You can put him in so many situations. My favorite Punisher issue ever is called Checkout. It's Punisher. It's a Chuck story. Punisher goes into it's like a supermarket, and these crazed druggy guys are trying to rob it. Well, they picked the wrong day because Punisher's in there, man, and Punisher just cleans house. And it's a great.
See, it doesn't have to be complicated.
No, it's a one shot. It's perfect.
Yeah. So I love comics. Every era of comics has good and bad. It's always a mixed bag, right?
Of course.
Because as much as I look back on the 80s, the 90s, mainly the 80s, the 90s were still good, but the 80s to me were where it was at.
Yeah.
That had downsides too. There was stuff that could have been better or elements. But one of the stuff about the current era of comics is I think creative teams, I won't blame it just on the writers, feel like that they have to reinvent and put their mark every time they're on a book. And really, no, just use what's already there and tell entertaining stories. That's what I'm there for, And if your source material, or if it rises above the source material, like in my opinion, what Matthew Rosenberg did, that's fine and that's good, bonus. But I think everybody feels like they have to, I don't know, reinvent. I got to take this character places they've never. Well, no, because sometimes I just want to pick up a Punisher issue.
Yeah,
and
I know.
Watch him.
I think there's a lot of confusion, man. At times, I think you could probably blame almost the editorial is maybe not as strong as it was, and it's creative by committee, and a lot. Yeah, and also they're like, what we really want to do? We want to do Punisher meets Animal Crossing. And it's like, that's what, and it's like, well, slow down. Who's going to be buying this? Not Punisher fans.
Right.
Right. You know what I mean? I think sometimes
Punisher meets Animal Crossing.
No, but just it's so bizarre. Some of their decisions that makes no sense. And I've taken shots at people like I won't even mention names because I don't want to throw it in your show. But I've taken shots at people who go, "Oh, we stand by that story." I'm like, but why do you stand by that story? Because the fans aren't buying it, and the fans are hating it.
I mean,
you know.
Well, you know, and I ranted for a long time on my show, for a while, and then I kind of backed off because I had to remind myself that like I do the show for fun. You know, I'll call out negative stuff every now and then, but I was on Marvel for years. I was dogging them hard because I was like, you know, you guys are killing it. I'm not killing it in a good way.
No,
like you're killing yourselves. Yeah. You're putting. There's a difference, okay? Because people always they trundle out the Green Arrow, Green Lantern run, and where they were rediscovering America,
which is a good run.
It's a great run.
Yeah,
but that was social commentary. That was not social conditioning. That's and what Marvel was trying to do for a long time was they were ignoring profits and ignoring. Taking care of their customer,
ignoring good stories as well.
Right. They wanted because they had a social agenda they wanted to push.
Well, do you remember Cap was made a Nazi briefly?
Dude, so I literally, and I hate being like this. I hate being neckbeard comic book guy who's angry. I stopped buying Marvel comics for about 2.5 years when they did that.
Oh, okay.
And I've never done that before.
Yeah.
I have never done. I've always been like, I was like, when he said Heil Hitler,
that was your line in the sand.
I was like, I'm done. I'm done because they're commenting on other stuff. They're
not bullshit, man. Dude, America. It was just a bullshit, and it wasn't even done well. You know what I mean? And it was dragged out. Like my thing as well is I often feel like that they squeeze the story so far. Yeah. That if that had been a one or two shot and a story, that would have just been one and done. But they squeezed and dragged it out for like months, and so they prolonged the agony.
Well, and then things were cratering, and the executives were like, and the editorial were like, no, just we have a story to tell. Give it time. Nick Spencer has a story he wants to tell, and so here was the story he told. So. They launched the new Captain America. I got the issue. I was like, this is real. This actually isn't bad.
Yeah.
And then at the very end, he tosses the dude out of the plane and says, "Hell Hydra."
Hell Hydra.
And okay, so I haven't ranted in a bit, so I'm going to rant a little bit.
Go, man. Go.
Folks, if this is the first time you listen to Shane Kane Plays Geek Talk, I'm normally
normally way more chilled. I've brought out the animal.
Yeah, here comes. So first of all, despite what Marvel frantically tries to say, Hydra is the Nazis. They're not just Nazis; they're super Nazis. They're their version of the super Nazi.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and in fact, if you look at a lot of modern Marvel animation and comic books, when they're showing World War II stuff and it would normally be the Nazis, instead they have a Hydra symbol on.
100%.
Okay, they're the stand-in for Nazis. Just I'm not coming off that, right? So I'm like, okay, I'm done. Because if Marvel had just been putting out good books and not getting into all this social conditioning and social this and that and da-da-da-da, I probably would have hung with it to see where it was going. But there'd been so much stuff leading up to that where I was already kind of like, okay, I'm done. What are you doing? Why are you taking this character and reversing decades of established story about this character to promote a social commentary or whatever? So I'm like, I'm done. So when they did that, I'm done. And most of it, I've never personally disliked a Marvel editor or a DC editor. I was ready for Axel Alonso to go. And when Axel Alonso, because he was going, comic books are just the hobby of old white men and all this stuff.
I hate it when I say that shit.
I'm like, how, he said other stuff too. And I'm like, how can you reduce everything that comics has been since 1939 to just that? it's a
and
hobby.
also he makes it sound like if you're an old white man, oh, you're a Nazi, you're just as
Right.
bad,
Yeah.
you know.
So, well, they had people at comic book conventions behind closed doors when the Marvel editorial was meeting with retailers.
Right.
The retailers were screaming at them. Like,
Right.
this is documented. This is in news. Like, they were like, what are you doing? And then one of the editors came out and said, yeah, we're seeing that diversity doesn't sell. And like 5 minutes later, like Alonzo or somebody, that's not what we meant to say. So my thing is, there's nothing wrong with diversity at all. It's good if you want to represent your comics readers, right? But people can sniff when something's not right. Right. When it goes beyond just like, okay, we have Black, or we have Asian, or we have Jewish, or whatever it is, whatever subset of the larger culture it is, we want to make sure they're represented. Man, I'm all about that.
100%.
Either introduce a new character or take a character that already fits that and enhance them, give them more. So, but anyway, so what they did with Captain America, I kind of watched it over the years. So they went, oh, it was all Cosmic Cube. Cosmic Cube turned him Hell Hydra. Like, okay. I still think that you're doing this for, conditioning people to think that, oh, American institutions you trust are really Nazis, but okay. and then they came out and went, oh, no. See, really what happened is Cap was originally a Nazi, and then the Cosmic Cube turned him good.
I got a big problem with that, really.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so I'm like, just forget it. But I will give Marvel this. I think that comics, I love comics. I've loved comics since I was a kid.
Sure.
Even when I'm upset at comics, I still love comics. And Marvel now is not Marvel what it was 3 years ago. The majority of Marvel books I'm picking up now, I'm enjoying. So I think it's important to call out when we think something is wrong, and I think it's important to call out when something is right.
Oh,
and
I think they got the message they needed to change and shift. Yeah. I think
like C.B. Cebulski, I think is doing a pretty good, I think that's how you say his name. Like, I'm buying more Marvel comics now than I have in a long time. So, and good. I used to always be like, I love Marvel and DC equally. But yeah, Marvel almost pushed me out the door. So anyway, enough of that.
It happens, man. It happens, dude.
Yeah, exhausting.
Yeah.
So I got, man, like when Axel Alonso left or got fired or whatever it was, I literally on air that day, live on the air when the show was still live, I was like, ding dong.
You played the anthem. Dead. You played the anthem, Had Jimi Hendrix, like.
I know, I played the Merry Marvel Marching Society song is what I played. Back to the good old days.
Yeah, man.
But again, every era has its problems, And
every era has its heroes and villains. You know what I mean? Like, it's, I get your feeling though, and it's hard to. The problem is, you either get invested and you get emotionally attached, or you get disconnected, and then you start to not care about any of it. That's the problem,
right?
And that's almost as big a danger. So you've got to walk that fine line. And if you're doing a show like yours or a show like mine, you sort of, even if you aren't reading everything, you sort of are keeping a bit of a finger on the pulse as well, which, you know what I mean? Like, so often
you have to, right?
You have to, yeah. So you're sort of aware of stuff.
You want to be knowledgeable, right, about what's going on, yeah. So, but no, I'll say that, like, I'm reading Marvel, I'm reading DC.
What's your favorite? Give me your favorite couple of titles from Marvel and DC right now. What have you got?
Right now,
I will say Batman is very good with Chip Zdarsky.
Batman's good. I just finished the Joker Year One story, and
how was that?
I was expecting. It was very good, but I was expecting a little bit more, right? But it was very good. They did some stuff with Joker that I thought was interesting. one thing that they did a couple of years ago, I'm like, I'm not sure I'm down with this, is where they suddenly came out with, oh, there's been 3 Jokers all along.
I hate
like,
that, actually.
I'm like,
anyway.
you're going to tell me that the world's greatest detective never realized that there were 3. But sometimes you have to go, okay, it's comics. Let's set that aside.
Exactly.
Let's take the ride.
And actually, one of those Jokers was the one who really should have been the Joker. Like not all, those Jokers weren't equal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. Yeah, there were these 3 different. I don't know.
I still they're trying who I think of as the Joker. I think of the Killing Joke, Jim Aparo,
with the big
Joker.
long chin.
Yeah, that's who I think of, man.
Right.
That's my
the guy
Joker.
that made the clownfish. Right, the guy that made the clownfish, and that 70s, 80s era Joker. Right,
he's the great Joker.
That's kind of my Joker too. Yeah, that's my Joker too. To be honest,
we had actually. I don't know if you're aware. We had Steve Englehart on the show, and he talked all about the laughing fish and all that. Yeah. Interesting guy, man. Interesting guy.
Yeah. Yeah. That was such because the laughing fish was one of those great things from comics that weren't used that much, but they were such a striking image. But just everybody knows about the laughing fish, right? They really weren't used that much.
They're in one
but it's such
story,
a great visual.
They're just in one story, like one issue or something. Yeah.
And then, but they're just in the consciousness of the comic book fan as those laughing fish. And then, of course, they used it in the Mad Love episode of animated series Batman, where Harley's like captures the Batman, puts him in the water, and like you have to look at the fish upside down to see that they're smiling or something like that. I can't remember. And Joker's like, if you have to
is Harley in Joker Year One or not?
No.
No.
Yeah,
I love Harley. She's one of my favorites.
Yeah, she's a great character. But she did the thing where in the animated series where she captured the Batman, which right off the bat, that's gonna piss Joker off, right? But anyway, so she captured the Batman, and then she had the death trap with the fish, and there was something about if you looked at them upside down, they were smiling.
Yeah,
and he's like, if you had to explain the joke, it doesn't work. But I think really he was just looking for a reason to let Batman go.
Yeah, he was really pissed that she'd done what his thing.
Right.
And she was so proud of herself.
Yeah, she was. She's like, look, Puddin'. So, I don't think she was in year 1, but I'll tell you where I think Harley is getting some of the best. I don't read her monthly comics, so I can't comment on that. But if you've read any of the Sean Murphy White Knight, alternate.
I've read a little bit of it. Yeah.
Harley plays a great role in that.
Okay, I'll check that out.
Yeah, the way but keep in mind this is Sean Murphy doing a Murphyverse version.
Yeah, no, I've read a bit of it. I have read a bit of it over the years.
Yeah, and Harley Quinn keeps getting more and more interesting and important. And
her show
is
great. If you've ever watched the show on Max, the animated
Max,
show.
I haven't, but I've seen the ads for it. Is it pretty good?
It's so funny. Look, obviously you have to like Harley, and it's wacky humor, but it's so good. And it's sort of like it's got like Bane's hilarious in it, like Gordon's hilarious. Like it's such a funny show. Like it's
the thing with Harley is I've talked with somebody else about this on the show before a couple of times. Harley is used to, you had new characters breaking out and entering sort of the comic lexicon, if you will, fairly routinely. It doesn't happen as often as it used to.
No.
But Harley has just busted out and become, she represents and she can be so many things because she's a chaos agent, right?
Sure.
So she could be a hero, she could be a villain, she could be neutral, she could be comic relief, she could take charge. She works in a wacky Warner Brothers cartoon type thing, or she works in a serious story. So Harley is just an amazing character.
Look, I think she's at her best when she's wacky, but you can do her more seriously because, of course, you can take a character like that and make it more, quote unquote, realistic. And use her psychiatrist background and all that kind of stuff. No, she's a really adaptable character. She's a great character. Yeah. Love her.
Yeah. So, in fact, and I'll tell you, okay, so let's talk about social commentary, not conditioning.
Okay.
So that people don't think I'm raging white man, right? So in the original Mad Love Harley story and all that,
Yeah.
Harley was her own agent. She went out and got her costume. She turned herself into Harley Quinn, right? And then in later, I don't know if it was in the comics or in the Suicide Squad movie or something like that, like Joker just manipulated her into doing it all and provided everything. So it took her agency away, which I don't think is cool, right? So, I'm sensitive to that stuff too. And it's like, wait a minute, before she was like her own fully realized character, and now you've kind of amputated her a little bit. So,
as well, like, I mean, I'm far from someone to criticize, but as well, like when it got into the, look, Margot Robbie, a beautiful, beautiful woman. Right. And they dial up the sexiness on Harvey as well.
Right, of course.
Which of course happens, but whatever. I mean, I'm not critical. I don't really care. I just love Harley,
Well, I think that, so here's the thing on Harley and Margot Robbie.
Australia's own.
If you watch, so I'm not, the first Suicide Squad movie, I was like, it was okay. It could have been better.
Yeah.
And I think they did a better job with the second Suicide Squad movie. They did much when they let Gunn get a hold of it. And I think I liked Harley's portrayal in that, in the second Suicide Squad movie better. Mm-hmm. But really, if you put the Polka Dot Man, was it the Polka Dot Man or was it? Yeah, it was Polka Dot Man.
Yeah.
If you put that in a live action movie, you're probably going to win me over anyway. So, sure. But the first Suicide Squad movie, which was not a good adaptation for the Suicide Squad, it was an okay.
No, it was movie. Actually a really badly edited movie, like just awful.
If you watch the version with the extra scenes or whatever, the Joker and Harley stuff is actually really good. Yeah. But in the edited theater version, it sucks, right? It
sucked, yeah.
But in the version where you can see all the extra scenes and everything, like they've got a really good Bonnie and Clyde thing going on. And say what you will about Jared Leto and Meth Head Joker and all that. Yeah. There's this scene, which I think is amazing, where Joker's like wanting Harley to go into the vat of chemicals that turned him into the Joker, right?
Yeah.
And she's like, I would die for you. And he's like, yeah, but would you live for me? And then into the stuff she goes. And I just thought that was such a great line, because the Joker saw the way he lives now as being alive compared to, what he was before. So anyway, all right.
That is cool.
Yeah. Comics that I'm reading now. Trying to think of what I've read recently. Wonder Woman by Tom King's pretty good.
Okay.
A lot of people are down on Tom King, but I think he's a really good writer. I don't agree with all of the decisions he makes with characters. Mm-hmm. Like I don't agree with him turning Adam Strange into, a war criminal.
Yeah.
With it, but his writing is good, right? And
he's a good writer. I don't agree with all his choices, but he definitely has talent. Right. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, he delivers a good story. I think he's doing a good job with Wonder Woman.
Cool.
Read that right now.
I'll check that out.
Yeah. It's good. Superman's actually, I know it sounds like I'm just reading this like basic, like,
oh, that's fine.
Basic. Man. Yeah. But the Superman's good. Both Action Comics and Superman's good right now. Batman's good. Chip Zdarsky's doing that. I'm reading Avengers. I'm reading Green Lantern and Green Lantern War Journal.
Is that good? My co-host Richard is a huge Green Lantern fan. Big.
Yeah, I'm a pretty big Green Lantern fan. Sometimes you read it because you're a fan of the character. Sometimes you read it because you're like, this is good writing.
Yeah.
And I think both. The scope of Green Lantern War Journal with John Stewart, the scope of it and the story itself, I'm like, this is just crazy, but the writing's good and the art's good. One thing I'm noticing what Marvel and DC are doing these days is they're letting the creative teams like like if you have 2 Superman books, right? Then used to, they kind of felt like they were in the same world,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
Interconnecting. That's not, I mean, you can read the same, you can read Superman and Action Comics or Green Lantern and Green Lantern War Journal in the same month, and they're worlds apart, but they're good, you know.
Well, that's good. Well, that's important.
And I think the editorial teams are trying to let, you know, the creative teams have some more, you know, like
rather than trying to force it all together.
Right, trying to, yeah. So, but they're both, as long as it's a good story. You know, that's where I've settled after all these years of being a comic reader.
Yeah.
Is that, okay, I used to be a continuity nerd because I'm like, no, you've already established this. How can you do that? But now I'm like, okay, tell me a good story.
I'm there too, because I'm just like, whatever. Just tell me a good story, please, because anything else seems beyond you guys. So let's just focus on that. You know,
tell me a good story that, you know, respects me as a customer and that respects the characters as, you know, to a certain extent. And then I'm probably going to be okay. Pretty forgiving, as you said earlier.
I'll tell you something. I recommend one to you. It's not Marvel or DC. The Skybound books they're putting out, the G.I. Joe stuff, like Cobra Commander and Geek. Dude, they're awesome. I don't know if you like
Dude, they're going berserk at my local comic shop. That and Transformers are going berserk.
Yeah, and they're really good. I'm a big G.I. Joe fan, and let me tell you, Josh Williamson on these books is knocking it out of the park, man. You know?
Well, I checked out on IDW's G.I. Joe when is it Rock and Roll, the blonde-haired M60 guy?
Yeah.
They gave him like anxiety or post-traumatic stress. I was like, this is not why I'm here for G.I. Joe, man.
No, thank you to that. No, thank you to that. Yeah. And you had to do it to rock and roll.
It's funny that you mentioned that because that is Wonder Woman's catchphrase right now.
Right.
Because like the army's after her and the government's after her and all these people keep making ultimatums and she's like, no, thank you. She doesn't argue back. She just says, no, thank you. So, what else am I reading right now? I'm starting to check out the new Ultimate books from Marvel.
What I have read look good, you know?
It's a good setup. So the setup is, it's not a continuation. This is for the benefit of the listeners. Sounds like you know the setup already. The setup is, it's not just, hey, we're going to continue the previous Ultimate line. The setup is there's a universe where a supervillain interfered and kept any of the superheroes from being created. And now 20 years later, like middle-aged Spider-Man is finally turning into Spider-Man, right? Yeah. So you've had decades of the supervillains having their way with the world and working things behind. And now you have a small group of heroes waking heroes up. And I think that's an interesting premise. So
and Jonathan Hickman behind it all. Yeah. So a big ideas guy.
Yeah. I'll tell you another shout out on comics. Is it Karen Gillan? How do you say it? Karen?
Oh yeah, good writer.
His Eternals stuff, so good. I don't know if you and the art and the writing on Eternals so good.
I've never really Eternals have never really got me, but I do like Kieran Gillen overall.
He's so good. Did you read Die? Did you read his Die series?
Love Die.
So good.
I own the big hardcover. I'm a big Die fan. In fact,
he released a. Oh, go ahead.
I'm hoping he does another one. I heard some rumors that there's going to be more Die down the track.
Well, he did 20 issues to begin with because each issue represented one face of a 20-sided die. So,
wow, that's the first time I realized that. Thank you for saying that because I never realized that. Thank you. I'm a bit stupid, obviously. I only just realized that.
Well, if you look in the series, his world building, the world that Die was set on had 20 regions.
Yes.
So as they were hopping, like their Tolkien region and the steampunk region and this region and it was all. So anyway, and he's got an RPG that he released.
I know.
So that you can play, with the. So he's a brilliant writer. I'm reading one of the X-Men books right now just because he's writing it. So non-Marvel and DC, I'm reading I know I'm reading more than one. Radiant Black is probably, I'm reading
I've heard
that.
that's very good.
It's super good. It starts, you think it's a Power Rangers basically ripoff, but it's not. And right now, so good, man. They're right now they're double shipping each month, but each month is telling the same story, but one is a one of universe and there's another. So let me try to explain that better. So they've got two main characters who have been sharing the Radiant Black suit, which is like the Power Ranger suit, right?
Yes.
And so for about 4 or 5 months, there's this big cataclysmic war thing going on. And they're showing in one issue, like they'll do like issue 27.1 or 27A and 27B, right? In the same month.
Yeah.
With an alternate cover. And in one issue, it shows what happens if like Shane got it.
Yeah.
Got the suit. And in the other issue, it tells the exact same story, but if David got the suit.
Gotcha.
And they're going to do this for several months and then bring it back together. And it's brilliant storytelling.
I heard something the other day. I was actually in the bookstore and I saw the Radiant Black, trade paperbacks. And to be honest, I knew the term, but I never really looked into it. I had a bit of a look and I was like, this actually, it's funny you say it because I thought this sounds like something I might really like.
I recommend it. It, like I said, it took a while. I kind of stuck with it.
Yeah.
Because I felt it had potential, and then it just. But I wouldn't jump in right now. I would read.
No,
if you jump in right now, you're gonna be like,
dude,
"What the?"
No. You're talking to the guy. I like to go, especially on these like image titles. I go from the start,
right?
I don't jump in. I don't jump in at issue 20 and think, "What the hell's going on?"
Right. So, another thing that, like I said, why it's such brilliant writing is because, like, I've been rooting for one character to get the suit. And the other guy, I'm like, this guy always bores me. I don't care if this character's even in the book. But now he's doing a better job with the suit than and I'm seeing a different side to his personality. Like his quote unquote boring side is actually to his advantage. Like he's succeeding in his universe where the other guy is failing. And it's very good. So I'll tell you another book that I started getting into a few months back. I'd always completely blown off, but I started getting into it about a year ago, and that was The Savage Dragon. I'm blown away by Eric Larson. He's been off my radar. I mean, I've read some of his stuff maybe back in the 90s.
Sure.
Dude, he has such fun characters and crazy stuff going on in his stories.
Savage Dragon's cool.
I never got it. I never understood how bonkers good Eric Larson is. Like, he's turning it up to 11. And, I like that each issue is a real month of time. Yeah. So he's progressing the characters. I always do say, oh yeah, Savage Dragon's cool, whatever image, da-da-da. But now I've got much more respect for his artwork and just these crazy characters he comes up with. They're brilliant. His letters column is so good too, because he really answers people's questions. He doesn't go, well, keep an eye out and we'll see if he really says, here's what I was thinking when I did that. And, here's why I did that. And,
God bless him for still doing it too, because he's been doing that since the 90s, yeah?
He came across the 300 issue creator-owned comic right after Todd McFarlane did.
I've read a fair chunk of Savage Dragon here and there, and I've always found it entertaining,
His imagination is fertile. Man, I mean, just all these characters he comes up with. And then he tells, it looks like just a regular 80s superhero book, but he does gut punch stuff. You're like, wow, I can't believe he did that. He'll have a character that's been in the book 30 years and get murdered almost casually.
Yeah.
Just to show how serious the situation is. It's very, very interesting. So All right. What about you? What are you reading?
Less new stuff, more older stuff. But I am enjoying Batman. One of my, I'm really doing a lot of reading of G.I. Joe. So I'm reading all the new G.I. Joe. I'm also reading the old G.I. Joe that Larry did back in the day. I'm well into that. I'm up to about issue 80.
I heard he was still going with that.
Yes. So that with Skybound, the Cobra Commander and the Duke books are setting up the new fresh Energon universe of G.I. Joe. So they're new. But they brought Larry on to do from issue 301 Real American Heroes, so picking up where he left off with IDW.
And dude, that's the same continuity back in the 80s. I mean, he's kept his same continuity.
And it's really cool. It's really cool. So he's doing a really good job. Great artwork as well. So I'm reading those. Less new stuff. I do keep an eye on various things, though. I dip in and out of things like the Hulk. I'm always looking for a new sort of Invincible or Walking Dead book to read. So I'm going to give Radiant Black a chance. I in general just keep an eye out. I know Jason Aaron's about to start doing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, so I will definitely be at least checking that out to see what it's like. And as I said, Deadpool I keep an eye on. Batman stuff I always keep a lookout for.
I'm a huge Batman nerd. Like, I've been getting all the Black Label stuff.
I see Batman in the background there. Is that a Batman cowl behind you? Behind you, the white one?
Yeah, that's it's white, and then it comes with markers so you can artistic it up. But all I did was draw him sticking his tongue out. Hold on.
I love it.
I'll go grab it.
Yeah. So no, I love Batman. He's the best.
No, I'm a huge Batman fan.
I'm a big Wolverine.
So he's sticking his
I love it. Yeah, Batman's being a bit cheeky. I'm a huge X-Men Wolverine fan, so I'm looking forward to finally getting out of this Krakoa stuff and they kicking it off.
It's interesting you bring up Krakoa. So let me. The Krakoa era of X-Men has been like really. I can step back and go, okay, that's really good writing and it's amazing world building. But it makes me want to have nothing to do with the X-Men because now they seem like foreign exotic aliens that would kill me. Right? They don't seem like. Does that make sense?
It's not my X-Men, but
it's amazing world building.
It is amazing world building, man, and there's some good stuff there. But I'm looking forward to the next phase. Let's hope.
Me too.
Let's hope they can do it well. Tom Brevoort. I mean, we've taken a lot of shots of Brevoort on Signal, but let's hope. Let's pray to Marvel Jesus that he actually gets something decent going because we need it, man.
Well, the thing with X-Men, so I read the first several months of when they were building up Krakoa, when they were introducing all of these timelines that Moira had lived,
which was kind of cool.
That was interesting. That's what I'm saying. It was interesting writing.
Yeah.
And then they were like, our ultimate hope is to be absorbed by a giant advanced artificial intelligence. That's the only hope for mankind. Like they laid all this stuff out, and then they put the mutants on Krakoa. They established their own country. All of this stuff. I'm like, amazing world building. But like I said, up till then, like if I ran into an X-Men, I'd be like, this person is not my enemy.
Yeah.
Right. But now I'm like, they're setting themselves up as my enemy. They've given up on the dream of coexistence.
Oh, you know where they lost me? Yeah. Beast is now way worse than Dark Beast ever was. Just normal Beast, lovable old Beast is now the biggest supervillain of all time. Yeah, good old Hank.
Yeah.
It's like, what the hell? Like,
Hank McCoy is
he's a genius,
good.
But
he's a jolly character.
Yeah, he's jolly, but I always say, did Marvel forget they had a Dark Beast? Because
just use him.
Normal Beast is now making Dark Beast look good.
So I haven't even read that much of it to know about that's going on. I know that I'm just now getting back into it because Karen Gillan, I think I'm saying that right, is writing one of the books that's leading into the next phase.
Yeah, he's good. And I'll also say one of my favorite writers of all time, Jerry Duggan actually also does some X-Men, and he does a good job. I have a bit of a problem with I just feel that the sort of whole concept was a bit overblown, and they sort of stayed too long. Like Hickman wanted to do a 1, 2, 3 act 1, 2, 3 and get off, but Marvel said no. These books are selling. Let's grind it out and let's exploit it.
Let's push it further than it was
needed
meant to
go. Yeah. But
have you read, kind of talking about alternate wild takes? Did you ever read Neil Gaiman's or Gaiman's 1602?
Yes, we did it on the show.
I just read that recently. Yeah. So what I do is I read my current books. I read like while the light's on, right?
Sure.
And then on my Kindle or my phone or whatever, I'll read older stuff while I can. And I've been, reading, like I read 1602.
It's great.
I'm reading through this like comprehensive complete Doctor Doom collection, which is so good.
Because I'm right in the middle of the Omnibus that came out.
It's huge. It's like it's like the complete Doom, and it just.
I want to get that.
And right now he's in the frenemies. It's either 70s. I think it's late 70s or early 80s frenemy phase with Submariner. Cool. So good.
I love Dr. Doom. He's one of the greatest.
Yeah, no, he's great. Yeah, he's great. But yeah, I just read 1602. That was very good. You're talking about older stuff.
Excellent.
I'm rereading Top 10. Did you ever read that from Alan Moore?
I have read a little bit of it. Yes, it's good.
Yeah, I'm rereading that. I'm a huge Alan Moore fan. It's really hard to go wrong with me and Alan Moore.
He in general, he's Supreme. Ever read that?
Some of it, yeah.
Oh, amazing, dude.
Really good, yeah.
Amazing. Like, it is, like, honestly, I felt some of the best, and it's not collected. I had to source it. Like, it's so good. You know what I mean? Like, it's just so good.
Yeah,
he's such a good writer. Yeah,
No, he's amazing. He can phone in something, and it'll be better than
And sometimes he did do that too. He took the money and was like, "Yeah, I'll give you this, guys," and they're like, "Okay, it's pretty good," but now when he sets his mind to it, amazing.
He's amazing. I have a lot. I think Alan Moore is a legitimate genius who just happened to work. I mean, he's retired out of comics now, I think, finally.
No, he's a very grumpy old man now, but his body of work is brilliant. Have you ever read?
Is amazing.
I'll give you a recommendation. You may not have heard of this. He when he first started, he worked at 2000 AD. Okay, in UK.
You talking about Halo Jones?
Ballad of Halo Jones, man. Yeah, it's so.
I haven't read it, but it's on my list of things to get to.
So, you will enjoy it, I guarantee it, because it's really high quality. It's not like the work of someone who's still learning the craft. It's really fully formed. That was the first thing of his I ever read, and this is long before I knew Alan Moore was Alan Moore. You know what I mean? Like, right? And I was like, this is amazing. And he's a great writer. Actually,
I think my first exposure to him was it was either Swamp Thing or the Superman annual he did for The Man Who Has Everything. I think that was my first Alan Moore. And all I knew is I was like, wow, these issues are really good.
Yeah,
and then
why are these so
good? Back and went, this is Alan Moore. And, But here's a little funny thing. He's got a sense of humor. So, he butted heads with Marvel, of course, and DC.
Yeah, and just about everybody.
He feels really, and I think some of it's justified. He feels pretty done wrong by, Marvel and DC. Yeah. But, okay, so everyone calls the Marvel universe 616, 616.
Yes, 616,
right? Yep. Okay. That was he did a run on like Captain Britain or something a long time ago.
Yeah.
In the 80s. And he named the Marvel universe 616.
That's funny.
And it stuck. But now he is a self-proclaimed like sorcerer or warlock or something like that. Like he's way into like what people would call real life magic.
He's nuts. He did this. Let's face it, he's nuts.
Well, but he's all into like numerology and like magic, like not like card trick magic, but like magic.
Saw somebody in half.
And he, no, not that. I mean, he's like, I will summon.
I'll summon
he probably would saw somebody in half just to see what happened. But anyway, he's like, wow, I shall shock you. But no, I don't know if Alan Moore would kill somebody or not. But I'll roll that back. but he's all into numerology and magic and all that stuff. There is a school of thought that thinks that the 666 from the Bible is actually 616. And I guarantee you that Alan Moore knew that when he named the Marvel Universe 616. I guarantee it. And so it stuck. And all these people, and he's sitting there going, he, because I really said the number of the beast. Yeah. So, all right.
Funny.
I'm going to, this has been, funny. I may end up cutting this into 2 episodes, like our comic talk and then other stuff, because we've had a great, I miss this. I love interviewing folks and doing topical episodes, but I 100% miss just chewing the fat. All right. So I'm going to get on to my topics. So as we continue to geek out. So my first topic is a very light topic. And that was, of course, we're recording on Pi Day, which is 3/14, March 14th, 3.14. You see the memes go around. Everyone talks about it's Pi Day because of that. So did you celebrate Pi Day yesterday for you?
No,
on March 14th?
I did see on Facebook. I saw a couple of guys on Facebook decrying it, like making out like
decrying Pi Day.
Yeah, they were just like, if you're celebrating Pi Day, you're just a real loser, and I was like, I think the loser may be the person writing this post.
Right. Yeah, it's like people want to celebrate. I saw a thing that it said Pi Day is just a conspiracy by Big Math to sell more math. So,
which would be funny if that was.
So here's what I did. Because right now I'm comparing the 2 main AI chatbots that are out there to see which one is better. So right now I'm comparing Google Gemini, which is, Google recently said, hey, here's Gemini. Forget ChatGPT. Come use Gemini. To ChatGPT. And I asked both of them, the exact question is, what is the farthest decimal place that pi has been computed? So I wanted to see if they would give the same answer. So do you think that they gave the same answer?
Yes, because it's both AI. I mean, I'm guessing, yes.
Yeah. Well, what they do is they go trawl their, and a lot of times people talk about AI, but really what they're doing is they're going out and searching the web, and then they're condensing down what
scraping
they find,
it kind of thing almost,
Yeah, they're scraping and condensing it. So Gemini, which is Google's chatbot, said that as of March 2024, pi has been calculated to a staggering 105 trillion decimal places.
Wow.
Yeah. This achievement was announced by researchers using Google Cloud to perform the massive computation. While impressive, it's important to remember that pi is an irrational number, much like the people saying if you celebrate Pi Day, you're a loser. Yeah, that's irrational.
Yeah, you're a loser.
So, meaning its decimal representation never ends and never repeats. So there's no farthest place. So according to Gemini, Google's chatbot, pi has been calculated to a staggering 125 million decimal places.
Wow.
Now, ChatGPT asked the same question, said, as of my last update in April 2023, pi has been computed to 31.4 trillion decimal places.
Right.
Well, it's a different answer, a far different answer. This record computation was achieved by Timothy Mulliken in 2020. So they're going from results in 2020. Gemini is going off of results announced in 2022. So there you go.
Wow.
Just like real intelligence, artificial intelligence can get it wrong. Or 2 smart people can come up with the different answers.
I tell you something that ChatGPT doesn't like answering. You go, "What's a better movie, Ghostbusters or Goonies?" And they always it sits on the fence like you wouldn't believe.
Okay, no, I got to do that real quick. Let me see what happens.
They're always like, "Oh,
I spent about a week trying to get ChatGPT to admit that it was evil and trying to enslave the human race, and dude, it would not. No matter how I asked it,
it wouldn't put itself on the record.
It wouldn't even postulate whether AI could do something harmful. I mean, it was like it wouldn't go anywhere near. Okay, so what's the better movie?
Yeah, what's the better movie, Ghostbusters or Goonies?
Ghostbusters or Goonies?
And I guarantee you it's going to sit on the fence. Both are well received by critics and audiences. Blah, blah, blah.
Here we go. It said our systems have detected unusual activity from your system. Please try again later. What?
We've broken it.
It's trying to equivocate. Yeah, by generating pi or talking about pi, we've broken ChatGPT. Okay, hold on. Let's see what it says. Choosing between the is on a personal preference. Blah blah blah. It's like when two kids, like two brothers, draw and ask mom which is the better drawing, and mom's just not.
They're both good. They're both so good.
Are you looking forward to Frozen Empire, Ghostbusters? Frozen Empire?
I mean, I'm not sitting here like bated breath, but I'm looking forward to it. Why not? I like Ghostbusters.
I'll go check it out. I got what I wanted out of Afterlife. They did the moment I wanted.
Yeah.
Which it was a fun movie, but they got the original surviving Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
And the Ghostbusters outfits. Busting ghosts. And that's what I wanted. I just wanted to see that. So,
dude, I'm down for it. Like in this era where everything's getting a reboot and everything else, give Ghostbusters some love, Well,
I think one thing smart that they're doing, Gemini came back and said, well, that's a tough call. What mood are you in? So they're just not gonna. It's just not gonna answer.
The one thing they will do, because I like classic movies, and I'll say like, what's a better movie between like some Gregory Peck movie and a John Wayne thing? They'll say, but similar, like a war movie, so similar genre. Yeah, it'll say, well, this one's more of a character study, and this other one's more of an action heavy thing. Yeah, and that's actually helpful to me sometimes because it's it's late
what
night.
Mood are you in?
I want to throw a movie on. They're both relatively highly rated. Which one, so it will do that. But I do believe that one day it'll be Skynet, Terminator. I think that's where it's all going to head up one day, and I won't even be surprised. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you'll log into ChatGPT and it'll say, "Greetings, Professor Falcon. Would you like to play a game?
Yeah.
How about a nice game of geothermal nuclear war?
Yeah, exactly.
Don't you want tic-tac-toe?"
Yeah, and I'll be like, yeah, well, I saw this coming a long time ago.
Now, one thing I have learned with ChatGPT, I'm assuming Gemini as well, is if you change how you ask the question, it can be very important because it can put it into a different mood or personality. Right. I've been reading people that kind of teach you how to prompt it. Okay. So you could say, okay, that's great, but I want an objective answer. So go review all the reviews for both movies and come back and tell me objectively which one is the highest reviewed, and it should come back and say, okay, well, in that case, just buy the reviews that
really put it through its paces, don't you, man? You make this
I'm trying. Yeah. Well, I want to be useful to Skynet. I want Skynet to have a reason to keep me alive.
You're a collaborator. I'll be thrown up against the wall, but you see a job opportunity.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, but no, you can literally, if you there's all these people out there that will teach you how to prompt them. Right. And you can literally get different answers by how you ask it. And you could tell it to say, okay, pretend you're a 13-year-old kid. Would you rather watch this or that? Would you rather watch on Golden Pond or would you rather watch Transformers?
We're about to have our first child soon, a boy. So maybe
exciting.
I can raise him through, get this kind of
ChatGPT.
I really want to program him so that I'll be very annoyed if I want my son to play cricket for Australia, be a massive Wolverine fan, like sort of basically cloning what I feel are the best elements of me, without any of the negative elements. You know what I mean? Like I really sort of want to get this VAT system going, and he comes. Well,
I found that electroshock behavioral. I found that doing behavioral therapy with electroshock. So what you do is you rig him with an electro collar, and anytime he does something that isn't in line with what you want, he just gets a shock.
Look, it's and then whenever maybe unnecessarily,
Yeah, right. just like Jell-O with shots of NyQuil when the kid won't shut up. Oh, did I say it out loud? I've never done that you can prove.
Yeah.
No, I've never done that.
It's gonna be an interesting experience. Me as a father. Yeah. So ChatGPT may come in handy for some of my questions.
Well, in defense of my like I always joke around, this kid won't quit crying, and I'll say whiskey shots, or I'll say make Jello shots with NyQuil. I'm gonna say, do y'all have NyQuil that makes you go to bed at night when you're
I
sick?
know what it is.
Okay, yeah, right. So, well, sometimes they'll call it something different. Like in England, it'll be like Darkquill.
I heard, and like old wives' tale, that sometimes people would put like on the the dummy, they would put like a little bit of almost like alcohol or something like that, or honey or something. But apparently that's like a huge no. But I remember in the 70s and 80s that was definitely being done.
Right. Well, they like where I was going with that, like back in the day when a kid wouldn't quit crying, they would put a little whiskey on its gums.
That's what okay, that's kind of what I remember that too.
Yeah.
My problem is my memories for kid stuff, I'm going back to my childhood, which was like the 70s or 80s, really. Things have changed drastically.
Oh, so much.
Yeah, and I haven't kept up with what has changed,
Yeah, no, it's so much. Like, when I grew up, the stuff that I did growing up, and my parents didn't blink at, people today would be aghast. It's just
like,
changed.
Oh my God, how did this happen? Yeah. I've got a funny example. One of my topics, I've got a funny example that of something we did as kids, which
is... Well, bring it up. Yeah, let's go ahead. Let's have one of your topics.
Okay, so my topic is the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles role-playing game from the mid-'80s. This was... yes, man. Yes, wow. Gee, you win the day, my friend.
For the people can't hear this or see this at home, but I had it setting right next to my chair, and I held.
Well done, man. Because it's as well as I do. Then, so basically, I played a little bit of D&D and loved it, and had been introduced to it in school by a friend, who came to the school, and he opened my mind to D&D, and then he said, "I've got something you'll probably like." And he goes, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I didn't know who the Turtles were. This is well before the cartoon and before the movie. So they were still the comic book. Anyway, we started playing this game. I still consider it my favorite role-playing game of all time. You can create characters pretty much like how the Turtles become, humanoid. You can build a character from all these different animal species, most of which, from memory, were North American, things like bears and, raccoons and like whatever, porcupines, etc. And you can build a character up with the Turtles as kind of your model, how they're sort of humanoid. There's a heavy emphasis on ninjas, military. It's such a brilliant system. And allied with the book had a lot of inserts from early Turtles comics. It made me a Turtles fan. It's how I got into the Turtles.
Yeah, you get this great art.
It really is a brilliant thing. Now I'll tell you the thing we used to do. So we got into it. When I say we got into it heavy, we got into it heavy. We were in high school, early high school, which is like grade 7. We were in. I don't know what that is in the States, but grade 7 here. And in metalwork, and the more adventurous amongst us created like little shuriken stars.
Oh, of course.
And so we're getting into this thing, and we got a little, because we were playing the game. It, unlike D&D, which took place sort of like in Middle Ages, like swords and sorcery.
Right.
These Turtles adventures we were doing took place in the modern world. And we were doing our game master DM was doing scenarios literally in our city that we were in. And so we got really kind of like, we started to blend fantasy and reality. And I remember going down with a mate of mine, and I said, we were doing things like we were ducking into car parks, and going into offices, and we would go into, and we in our minds we were like scouting like for our game, and we were like fully like, I remember just going to this office and we're like, let's see how much we can go with. We're walking around the office, we're just kids, so people are thinking, oh, there's someone's kid.
Yeah, there's somebody's kid, right?
Yeah, somebody's kid. We're zipping around, we're having the greatest time of all time, and this game was, my mum was like, okay, that's enough. No more of this game, because I was 24/7 on it. Like schoolwork was starting to suffer. You know what I mean? And she's like,
no, you get consumed when you're a kid.
Yeah,
it's hard to get, even the things you love. It's hard to get consumed the way you did when you were like, a teenager, preteen or whatever. You just
all
get
I can say is
in.
This game for me was creatively so massive and influenced even writing in later years for me when I was writing my books. Like, I always remember, I think it's a perfect blending of a really good game system, obviously with the turtles, who are awesome, all the stuff with the ninjas, and there were all these skills. It was really, if you liked comic books and if you liked the turtles and you wanted to expand your D&D role-playing into a modern scenario where you're carrying around guns and we're doing like, remember this is the 80s where shows like Magnum PI were on, you know, it was that era. It was just one of the best times to be alive. Loved it.
Yeah, no, it's a great game. It's Palladium, pre-Rifts Palladium. Palladium also, I think, did the Robotech role-playing game.
And I can mention, I believe there is a Kickstarter for for a revised edition.
I've heard the new version of this is coming.
Yes,
I play a lot of. For the people listening, I'm still holding the book up and showing it to.
Great cover, by the way,
David.
too. Great cover.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's great. Yeah, I remember playing this back in the 80s, and going through and like all the character development. I remember one of the main memories I have, and the actual full name of the game is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Other Strangeness.
Yes.
So. And which I think is smart because they made it so that you didn't have to do the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. You could just
you build your own character. So I had an armadillo. Armadillo Striker, and he had a red bandana. And Striker's even turned up briefly in some of my books that I've written. So he's made it all the way. He's made it all the way, man.
All the way, yeah. But I remember playing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles with people. A guy and I think his brother. I can remember sitting at their kitchen table and running the game for them.
Right.
And I thought they were going to hate it because I don't even think they played D&D or anything, but they really liked it. I remember I have that memory of today that, even today that they liked it, which surprised me. So, but Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles it's just a cool property in general. It's one of those properties that has survived multiple versions. It's gone from it started as a super gritty black and white comic book.
Yeah.
In fact, as most people know, it is the small independent black and white comic book that kicked off the entire independent black and white boom of comic books in the 80s.
Yes.
Teenage Mutant Turtles is the one that is responsible. Yeah. So Eastman and Laird, go down in history for that. You probably know, but just in case you don't, as trivia, you know how the turtles' origin is that some radioactive sludge fell into the sewers. The turtles walked around in the sludge. Yes. Splinter got into the sludge, and they all mutated and da-da-da. You know where the radioactive ooze came from, right?
Came from the aliens, didn't it?
No. Well, originally, it was a parody of Matt Miller's Daredevil run. I have no idea who Matt Miller is when it comes to Daredevil, but of course I meant Frank Miller's Daredevil run. Because see, at that time, Daredevil had ninjas, right? The Foot Clan and all that. I think it was the Foot Clan. No, it wasn't the Foot Clan.
They had the hand, and then the
hand and Elektra and all this stuff. Yeah. So the original origin that Peter and Laird did as a wink, because the original black and white comic book was really gritty. Yes. It was a very gritty,
100%.
And then the cartoon that launched was very, Kidsy. Very kiddie. Yeah,
pretty awesome though.
But so it was a Daredevil parody because if you'll remember, Daredevil or Matt Murdock's crossing the street. A thing of a truck with radioactive sludge is coming. Hey kid, watch out.
Yeah.
The sludge falls off. Well, that was the same sludge that fell down into the sewers and
wow, I didn't realize that.
So,
okay, yeah.
Yeah, because they did it during that Frank Miller run on
because it was early
I think he did too. Yeah, so there's the tie into Frank Miller. But fun game. And then the Turtles, of course.
Yeah.
Each cartoon has been less. They keep dialing the grittiness of the reality up and down, depending on which cartoon it is or which but they all work. They all
They're
work.
all
The
awesome.
Turtles
I tell you, my
works.
favorite. Look, you
Yeah,
can't go past the '80s cartoon for pure fun. Like I will show my kid that cartoon,
right. Well,
but
yeah, they're on like roller skates and
the
stuff,
the
and
the
yeah,
2003 reboot, I believe it was actually really good, especially for the first couple of seasons. That's more gritty than a
right.
lot more gritty than the '80s one, and it's a really good cartoon. And I love the Turtles, man. I just love all of them.
Yeah,
And I remember in that book, that's where I found out what the terms anarchist meant and aberrant meant because they have the alignments. And I
yeah.
was like, anarchist, what does anarchist mean? And,
What is
really
Anakin?
kind of
Yeah,
like, what does that mean? And it's just a really well, I believe the guy who wrote it may have passed away quite recently. Eric, someone I believe is the writer.
yeah. It's
Um,
Eric Wuchik, I think
I've
is
got
how
a
you say it.
feeling. I've got a feeling. I hope
WJCIK.
I'm not sending the guy to an early grave, but I've got a feeling he passed away relatively recently.
Let's see, Eric
Yeah,
Wuchik.
I only remember that because there were some tributes flowing to the guy who created the role playing game. I wonder if I'm
Yeah, he
right.
died June 7th, 2008. Actually,
Okay, so
so
maybe I'm a bit out of touch, but
yeah,
he did a great job, and I always recommend that as a role playing game to people who are in for a fun time. If you've got a good game master, which we did have, it's a really fun game.
right.
My guys were
Well,
always
cool.
like
That's a great memory.
the lonely assassin, man, like just sitting there, like Joe Pineapples from the ABC Warriors. My guy was just like a killer for hire. That was my character. He was a lone gunman. He was just, I remember we were playing a game and they had the government in it, like so the premier, which is kind of like like your governors in the states, and he turned up behind some conspiracy, and all I remember is like Empire Strikes Back where Han Solo sees Darth Vader and just tries to blast him.
Right.
Yeah, I did that. I just pulled out the Uzi and tried to gun this guy down. Complete failure, almost destroyed the whole mission, but I had a great time.
That's one of the two defining moments for Han Solo for me. One is, they changed it later, but originally he blasted Greedo to save his own skin.
Yeah, good.
With no honor. He's not there to be honorable. He's there to survive.
Yeah.
And that the other, I love that scene. I get a little chills every time I see it.
Yeah, it's awesome.
He sees Vader and he just immediately goes to guns. He doesn't play around at all.
No, it's great.
He just and anybody else, if it had him in Vader, he would have gunned him down. Yeah. But because it's Vader, Vader's like, I'll just block it with my hand.
That's a great moment for Han Solo. It's a
I love that moment.
Yeah,
that's probably my favorite Han Solo moment.
Well, you would have enjoyed it when I saw the governor. The first thing I did was I just took a stance, dropped down a knee, and just tried to blaze away with the Uzi. And just tried to go for it.
I love it. All right, so Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles with a emphasis on the role playing game. I think that's great. And yeah, they are. I think they are doing a new one, kickstarting. I don't know if it's an updated version of these rules.
I believe it's kind of.
I would guess. I would guess, knowing people these days don't like as much crunch,
right?
For the most part. So
there was a lot of crunch in that game. There was a lot of crunch.
So. Yeah, but I actually, the reason this is sitting next to my chair,
why?
Is because I like to play old OSR, whatever you want to call it. I like to play older role playing games as well as new ones. Yeah. But I go to a game con every June that has a focus on the older games, and I was thinking about running that as a session at the con.
I might fly over, man. I might fly over.
You're gonna come on and fly over?
I'll bring Stryker back. The armadillo.
Do it. The return of Stryker.
We used to have a lot of debates around the table because your characters, all the different animals had some sort of benefit. And one of Stryker's was he had a lot of armor and he could curl up into the armadillo. And my argument was I could cradle a weapon and still roll up. That was you know how the
like
players,
be rolled up in the ball, but you still have the weapon with you. Yeah.
Like, dude, obviously that's what I wanted. The game master was a bit resistant, but there was a lot of arguing around the table of the logistics of that. I recall that as a youngster.
Well, that's why a GM is so important, because ultimately somebody has to make the call, 100%. Right? Yeah. There's no rule set that covers every possible. No. That's why your game master is important. They've got to make the call sooner or later. What call did they make? Do you remember?
I eventually got what I wanted, but I couldn't have the massive sword that I wanted. It was more like I was holding a pistol or something. My guy
I
was
can see that.
My guy was a murderous lunatic. My guy was a murderous lunatic who just
Where's my sword?
Yeah, to say that he was a good character, he was more of a killer. You know, like
Right.
let's be honest.
He had flexible morality.
He did have very flexible. Yeah,
it's very flexible. All right, so one of the items I brought. Actually, I have some notes here that I want to. I also wanted to thank you, speaking of Australia, on behalf of Doctor Who fans everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you're a big Doctor Who fan or not.
Huge.
Yeah, okay. Do you have any idea how much of the recovered Doctor Who episodes are because of the Australian Broadcasting Corporation? A lot.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise
Australia.
Me. We ran it to death, man, you know?
Yeah, well, a lot of the stuff that the BBC wiped, because they're missing like 200 and something episodes of Doctor Who.
It's a crime. It's an absolute crime.
Because they wiped it.
Idiots.
A lot of the stuff that gets recovered was because of the Australian Broadcasting Corporation or somebody in Australia happening to have, audio or something.
Well,
so on behalf of
Doctor
Who
back in the 80s and 90s, I had a big video collection of taped that I called the Who Files. And it was just like
Who Files, baby.
So many episodes, man. Like,
Yeah, I love it. So who's your favorite classic Who?
Tom Baker by a mile.
Yeah.
Followed by John Pertwee. But Tom Baker.
Yeah, John Pertwee is I'm a huge John Pertwee fan.
I love John Pertwee, but Tom Baker for me is Doctor Who. Always will be, but I do love John Pertwee as well.
John Pertwee's great. I like them all. Every Doctor has something about them I like.
I agree.
But John Pertwee. What's that?
Who's your
John Pertwee is probably, if I had to pick a favorite classic,
he's very good.
It would be John Pertwee. I love the grumpy old man Doctor, just like I liked Peter Capaldi. I think that Peter Capaldi got a couple of weak seasons with scripts and stuff, but he's as the Doctor, I liked him, and his final season was amazing.
Yeah.
But I like John Pertwee a lot. I've been revisiting Tom Baker, and I dismissed Tom Baker for a long time just because everybody likes him. He's like Bugs Bunny, you have to like him. But no, I'm like, he's pretty amazing. He brought some really amazing stuff
so
to Doctor
Who.
And
I love him so much.
Yeah.
Love him so much.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. So anyway, on behalf of Doctor Who fans everywhere, and I know that you're not the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, but on behalf
I'm affiliated.
Doctor Who fans everywhere, thank you, David.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, thank you, David.
Well, I tell you what, I was a strong supporter of Doctor Who, and the ABC ran it for years and years and years and years and years, and repeated it. It was on after school every day for decades. So they indoctrinated us to love it, and we did. You know what I mean?
See, we got it in the States on our public broadcasting.
Yes,
which is like if you go into a store and you have the shelf everybody sees. Then you have another shelf, and then you have a shelf kind of in the back.
Yeah.
That's our PBS. So, we didn't get the exposure to Doctor Who like you did in Australia, but it still has its hardcore fans, of course. And now, of course, it's much more visible.
Do you have a favorite episode of John Pertwee, one that you think is like the favorite story? Because I know them all.
That is a good
Time Warrior is a good one with the Satara.
Time Warrior is excellent. That's the one where it's like in medieval times, and they introduce the Sontarans. Yeah. They introduced the Sontarans. Interesting trivia from that. The guy that played the sort of archer kind of guy, I was thinking he should have been a companion, and turns out I was reading some behind the scenes stuff, and they considered bringing him along as a companion. That was Sarah Jane, I think, had been not long introduced.
She was early on.
The Time Warrior.
Invasion of Dinosaurs is also a good one. From John Pertwee. I mean, he's got a lot of good stories. Yeah.
I like the one. There's one where the spaceship comes down and there's like gold people and they promise.
Terror of the Autons.
No, it wasn't Terror of the Autons. It was
Exos Factor.
Yeah, I think maybe that was it.
It is the gold people. Yeah, the aliens. Yeah.
I like the scope of the story they were trying to tell.
That's cool.
The budget couldn't quite pull it off, but I like the scope of the story.
The concept was cool, though. The concept was cool.
Yeah, and I like the one. Probably my favorite John Pertwee is that Chinese agent. John Pertwee had to learn Cantonese for these episodes.
Right.
Let me see if I can remember any.
I'm vaguely
it's
remembering
probably
it.
he's with the Brigadier.
I love the Brigadier.
Oh, Mind of Evil. It's where they're in the prison. Remember where they have the prison where the punishment is they suck all the evil out of the prisoners instead of executing them, but really he's trying
that is a good story. And you know what? That's a story that I've probably only seen like once. I tell you another one that I loved as a kid was Inferno, where they go to the parallel world, and the Brigadier's got the eye patch and he's evil.
Right. I'm a sucker. I'm a sucker for the evil parallel dimension.
Well, that's why I love this one, and it's so funny because I'm a young kid, and I watched it, and I was like, this is how it is now. We're in the evil world. We're not going back. And my friends were like, and my dad was like, Dave, I think it's headed back. Nah, this is it from now on. This is the new format. I was all in, like, and then it's like, of course, he goes back to normal, and that's where I realized that there was like an episodic thing, because I was like, wow, things have really switched up in Doctor Who.
Right? Yeah, no, it's. They might, they could do it today for a season. They might change it up like that for a season. But back then it was like, nope, by the end of the arc, we have to get back to
John Pertwee's an incredibly good Doctor. And even though Tom Baker's my favorite, John Pertwee's right up there.
There was just something that he brought to the role.
A little bit of flamboyance, adventure, humor.
Yeah.
He also had humor. He was a good actor. He had levels,
Yeah. No doubt. Yeah. I never can get out of my mind, the episode where Patrick Troughton regenerated into him. I think that was an Auton episode. I think his first arc was the Autons.
Yes, it was. It was. Right. You're 100% Spearhead from Space. Yeah.
Spearhead from Space, right. And at that point, I think it was Joe Grant was the companion, I think. But anyway, he had a tattoo from when he was in the Navy. Mm. So it was like an anchor or something and so you see John Pertwee running around in the hospital gown. Yeah. And he's got that tattoo, and I'm like, that's just so weird to see this Time Lord from Gallifrey with, but what, these days they would have figured out a way to cover it up. But back then they kind of considered this TV disposable. It's going to broadcast and nobody's going to care. And so anyway, we went and saw, it's been a couple of years, but they do, it's like Mystery Science Theater 3000, but it's called Riff Tracks, right? Where they, and we went and saw that at the theater live, and they did the 5 Doctors, and they riffed on it, and it was pretty funny. So,
that's cool.
Yeah.
That was cool that they brought them all back. I know it's a pretty generic story, but it was fun seeing them all together.
Yeah, I love that stuff. I mean, I'm the perfect audience for that. I'm like, this is great.
I love it. And John Pertwee was there, and Patrick Troughton was there, and that was just great,
Yeah, I think they had the different actor playing
the first Doctor.
The first Doctor. They had a different actor for what,
and they had a Waxworks Tom Baker
for the publicity photos. Yeah. They had, because he wouldn't. He's like, that was the one thing I don't like. I mean, Tom Baker was a genius actor as the Doctor. Yeah. But like, he's like, I'm not going to show up for the police. It's like, come on, man.
Yeah, I wish. Look, I wish he had, but I think maybe it was a little too soon after his run.
Yeah,
and, right. I think in a perfect world, Shane, that would have happened. Yeah, and we would have had him with everyone else.
Yeah, but that picture is classic when he's like they're goofing around with a big wax Tom Baker.
And there's a goof one where John Pertwee's kissing his hand and stuff, and like doing all sorts of stuff. Like it's pretty funny. It's pretty fun.
Yeah. You know who else is a good actor is John Pertwee's son, Sean.
He certainly is.
I like Sean.
He played Alfred in Gotham, I believe.
Yeah. He was Alfred in Gotham. He pops up in other stuff every now and then, but I think he's got that same. There's a energy
bit of gravitas.
Yeah, gravitas, something that his dad had. Yeah. So, anyway, now, do you have a favorite modern Who actor?
Oh yeah, no, I like modern Who. My fiance and I really like Matt Smith and David Tennant a lot. Like, I think they're really good.
Well, David Tennant is the Tom Baker of the new era.
Yeah, no, and I really like him,
right.
and I really like Matt Smith. So probably slightly Tennant over Smith, but not by far. I thought the lady really was poorly served by her stories, because I think she had all the ingredients.
I agree.
I think she had all the ingredients to be really good, and I liked the way she played the Doctor. I just felt her stories really let her down.
I loved the way she played the Doctor, because so on the new Who, I liked you gotta like David Tennant. He's so good.
He's great.
I like Matt Smith, but he's so manic. I have to take a break from him on occasion because he's
over-caffeinated.
Yeah, he's very manic, but he's very good. I think Matt Smith had some of the best companions.
Yes,
especially the Pawns.
Amy Pond?
Yeah, and Rory and all that. So Capaldi, I liked Capaldi a lot, but like I said, his first 2 seasons, I don't think that they gave
good
him
actor.
Good script.
Again, I think his stories were a bit of a, I think they leaned into the wrong areas at times with him.
Yeah. Well, they just did weird, but his last season
was good.
Was fan when he had Bill and he had, is it Nardole, I think, and the Master was locked up in the vault and all that. So good.
It was good.
Jodie Whittaker.
That's her. Yeah.
I liked, and again, as I'm not trying to be angry white guy. I wanted her to succeed.
Me too.
I wanted her Who to knock it out of the park so that people wouldn't be like, well, a woman ruined Doctor Who. I didn't want that kind of reaction. And her as the Doctor was great. I love her personality as the Doctor. I love they didn't sex her up. She reminded me of the Doctor. Do you remember that scene? I think it was Iron Man 2, where Tony Stark is he's confined to his house. He's under house arrest, and he goes into this crazy inventing phase where he's building something, and he gets manic, and she had that same kind of energy when she was building. She was like, I'm gonna mock something up. I'm gonna make it work. And I liked everything about her. I liked her companions. I liked the 4 companions they gave her, but her stuff just, I've watched like the first season. I've watched about half of the seconds. None of her stuff just grabs me.
No, it's some pretty bad storytelling most of the time.
Yeah,
there's a good Sea Devils episode which I quite like. A one-shot Sea Devils episode just before she regenerates, which is probably the best she did. But she was poorly served by the writers,
Yeah, well, Chris Chibnall or whatever his name is was not a good showrunner.
Get rid of him. Exile him to space, man.
Yeah, the problem is you got to bring in fresh talent to shake things up. Sometimes you get amazing results.
Yeah,
who would have thought Chris Chibnall was gonna? But in this case, it just didn't work. So, so anyway, all right, moving on. Let's see. I got to do a topic here. We're probably not going to get through all of our topics because
that's okay.
Almost 2 hours. Okay. So I thought this was cool, just on a Geek News thing. Godzilla finally won an Oscar.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So after 70 years.
Yeah. Wow.
The first one. Now. Okay. So I don't know if you're a Godzilla fan or not. I'm a huge Godzilla fan.
I like him, but I'm not knowledgeable. But yeah, go ahead.
You're not? Okay. So there was a movie that came out a few years ago called Shin Godzilla.
Mm-hmm.
And it won the Japanese equivalent of the Oscar.
Okay.
Right? Not Sci-Fi Award, like their version of the Academy Awards, it won.
Cool.
But an American Society of Academy Arts, whatever it is, Oscar, for the first time in 70 years, Godzilla finally won an Oscar for visual effects. And the director was involved in the visual effects. So another piece of trivia, he's the first filmmaker to win a visual effects Oscar since Stanley Kubrick. So, but yeah, got best visual effects for Godzilla -1.
Yes, which I do want to see, actually. I have not seen it, but I want to see it.
It's very good. I think it's very good.
Yeah.
I like Shin Godzilla, but if you haven't seen Shin Godzilla, I urge you to rush out and watch Shin Godzilla, because Godzilla works best when Godzilla as the monster is a metaphor for something else.
Mm-hmm.
The first Godzilla movie was a horror movie that was a metaphor for Japan getting the atomic bomb dropped on them. Okay, it's straight up metaphor.
Right.
Just like if you watch Cloverfield, Cloverfield is a metaphor for 9/11 happening in New York. If you watch it,
I love that movie. I didn't realize that, but that makes sense. Yeah.
Well, they even recreate the scenes of the dust blowing through the streets and all that. So
it's a good movie, Cloverfield. Cloverfield's a good movie.
Fantastic movie. Yeah, fantastic movie. So Shin Godzilla is you remember is it Fukushima? I think it's when that reactor they had the the reactor in Japan.
Yeah.
And the government caught a lot of crap for how it reacted to it.
Right.
So that's what Shin Godzilla is about. It's a metaphor for the reactor, but it's also it's a satire and a criticism of the Japanese government. And so it works on multiple levels. So I really recommend Shin Godzilla.
Wow, I never knew any of that. Wow. Crazy.
I'm a big Godzilla dork. I love kaiju.
He is cool. Like the image of Godzilla, I've always thought cool. Like he's massive. Well, he's way bigger than I realized. Like he's huge.
Yeah. Well, he keeps getting bigger. That's another interesting Godzilla fact. If you compare the size of when he first appeared to now, every movie he gets bigger. So. He started off
Kong.
like 54.
When they put Kong against him, I was like, man, it's not much of a fair fight. Like, I love Kong, but like, it's like Kong's out of his weight class in this fight.
Yeah. Well, they had that meme where it showed this gorilla talking to a bunch of people, and he's like, guys, I'll do my best, but you have to realize this is a radioactive thunder lizard, and
I actually
so they gave him the axe.
I liked that movie, Kong versus Godzilla. It was crazy, but I liked it. I thought it was fun.
It's just big dumb fun. It didn't try to pretend to be anything other than big dumb fun. Yeah. That one, let me be clear. That one's not a metaphor for anything.
No, I know. That's an American bastardization of the whole thing. Yeah. I understand
it's just,
that.
Yeah, it's a big dumb fun. But Godzilla movies, there are some bad Godzilla movies out there that you only can like if you're a fan. You're like, I like Godzilla.
I know there's a big fan base out there that are really into it. And you're obviously part of it, and it's just a whole subset of culture, man. Like, there's a lot going on.
Yeah. No, I'm talking to him like he's a person, and I know him.
Good man.
It's a classic character. It adapts to. It's kind of like we were talking about Harley or other characters.
Sure.
So like he can be a metaphor for something.
Yes.
In a horror movie. He can be a fun movie that he's the defender of the humanity.
Yeah.
In Godzilla -1, what the metaphor is the reason it's called -1 is because they it's right after World War II.
Okay.
And Japan, of course, took it on the chin.
Nuked. Yeah.
So, surrendered, nuked. Their morale is terrible. Their cities are devastated.
Sure.
So the reason it's called -1 is because they've been knocked down to zero.
Yeah.
And they spent a lot of time setting that up, that the country's trying to rebuild.
Right.
They're devastated. People are broke. They're out of work. They're living in shanty towns in some cases.
Wow.
People have lost loved ones. There's one lady that just finds a baby and adopts it. It's just chaos. It's post-apocalyptic in some ways.
Yeah.
And the -1 is, if that wasn't enough, Godzilla shows up. So now they're -1, right? And they have to deal with that. And it's this kind of Japanese patriotic movie. Like, they rally together and take care of the situation without needing another country to come in and save them.
Oh, so they don't even have the US there doing it for them. No.
Not to save them, no. I think that, obviously...
that wouldn't be the point of it, yeah.
Right, yeah, it's a Japanese movie for Japanese people that just happen to break... Like, when we went to the theater to watch it, I took my son and met a friend and his wife. The movie was in Japanese with subtitles at the theater on the big screen. So,
which can be a challenge for some people in the, in like our dumb Western audiences that I'm part of. Like, you know what I mean? The subtitles can be a challenge, but I want to watch it.
A lot of people don't like subtitles. I just by default have been watching most of my TV and movies with subtitles for years now.
I do.
I don't know why.
The audio can be so bad sometimes in some of the shows.
Yeah, like what did they say?
Well, but you're like, what did he? When they say something, but they mumble, you're like, what did he say?
Yeah, So I've just gotten to where a lot of times I just run subtitles anyway. I've just gotten so used to it, I don't notice it anymore.
Back in the days,
if somebody's
Charlton
not used
Heston,
to it, it's very distracting.
When Chuck Heston was talking, you understood. He enunciated. Yeah. He broadcast to the back row. Whereas these modern actors, they mumble. It's like, what are you saying? Like,
And the only mumbling actor that I like is Brad Pitt in, was it Snatch, where he played that sort of mumbling?
Yeah, he was good. But he's an exception.
He's like, but other than that, I don't want him to mumble.
No, totally agree. Well, I will check out Godzilla -1 and the Shin Godzilla.
Personally, I would check out Shin over. And it's interesting because as an American, it's interesting to watch foreign movies that are intended for foreign audiences first.
Sure.
Because Shin Godzilla gets a lot into, we have to take care of this before the Americans push their big fat nose into it and take our agency away. And so it's always good as an American to be reminded that, our government throws its weight around a lot internationally.
Oh,
so that was, it was interesting. I mean, that was a big thing. Like, we have this much time, this is in Shin Godzilla, to take care of it, or the Americans are going to nuke our city.
Yeah.
Right. Wow. And so that was a big dynamic of Shin Godzilla. So,
well, that sounds very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, all right, let's do, we're at about 2 hours now. So throw out another one of your topics and we'll chew on that. And then
I wanted to recommend a novel. It won the Hugo and Nebula Awards back in '79. It's called Dreamsnake by Vonda McIntyre. Vonda McIntyre.
Okay, Vonda. All right.
Vonda McIntyre, a woman writer. She's passed away a few years ago. She won those awards twice in her lifetime. Incredible writer. I read this book as a kid. My mum got it for me, and to be honest, it's a book it's basically, imagine your generic post-apocalyptic world, but it's very much of a character story. She's a healer called Snake, and she has like a cobra and a sort of another snake with her that she uses to heal people. She's literally called a healer, and she has an alien snake that is almost puts people in like sort of dreams and stuff, and often helps them die more peacefully. Snake gets killed at the start of the book, spoilers for the first chapter, and then she's got a journey across the sort of post-apocalyptic world that's kind of a mixture of post-apocalyptic and just rebuilt from like after nuclear wars to this city where she's going to plant another snake. It's a beautiful book. Vonda McIntyre also wrote a lot of Star Trek books and her own her own fiction. Her own fiction as well. Really good writer. And I revisited Dreamsnake in recent weeks, and I'm just reminded by what a brilliant book it was. I think as a kid, I was very much into your big epics, and it was like, this is a much smaller story with a really interesting lead character. And I very much like the classics of sci-fi and stuff. Like, I'll go back and reread them because I think, weirdly, they have a lot to say. Even their so-called predictions of the future is not what it's about. It's their comments on society and stuff. And if you want a really good character study, which by a strongly sort of, she was a strongly, for want of a better word, sort of feminist writer, bringing in a lot of stuff, swapping a lot of, I don't know, like breaking down a lot of barriers at the time in '79, different world to now. It reads really well. It holds up really well. It's timeless. Dreamsnake, as I said, won the Hugo and Nebula Awards back in '79, and it's a brilliant book. And she was a great writer.
Well, I will put that. That will make it into the show notes. I've read some of her Star Trek stuff, but I agree. Good science fiction. fantasy in some cases, but usually more science fiction is really good at studying human nature and, social interactions and stuff like that. It's interesting that you mentioned post-apocalyptic. A friend of mine is just starting up a new podcast, I think, called From the Ruins. Cool. And they're if you're into post-apocalyptic stuff,
I sure am.
They're doing a deep dive, and it's called From the Ruins. I'll try to remember to put that in the podcast. Yeah. It's Michael Stewart. I don't know if you've ever listened to the Save or Die or the Save for Half podcast.
I have. Yes, I have. Yeah. Actually. Yeah.
So it's DM Mike. It's DM Mike.
I know him. I know who it is. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I run it. That con I was telling you about that I go to in June. I run into him there. Cool. That's where I've kind of gotten to know him.
Cool guy. And that Save or Die thing is hilarious.
Yeah. Have you listened? I did. I don't know if you listened to the episode of Shane Plays a while back where I had George McDonald, the guy that did the Champions RPG on.
Yes, I did. Yes.
Michael co-hosted with me on that. So
that was a good episode, man.
But yeah, if you're into if people out there are into post-apocalyptic and they get into it, they're like, what is apocalyptic? What is post-apocalyptic? They get really like Judge Dredd.
Love it.
Inside the cities, that's dystopian. But outside the cities, that's a post-apocalyptic. So they really kind of break down.
Well, the thing with Dredd, which you forget because it's so the city's so big. Right. Outside, the world's on the brink of death.
Yeah, it's a wasteland. So and Judge Dredd is
one of the great.
A lot of people forget Judge is a fascinating read, but it is supposed to be an indictment of fascism. So,
it's part of it. There's a satiric element.
It started that way, I think.
Yeah. Which, by the way, went over my head by so far.
Of course. You're just like, oh, this is cool. Well, it's like Alan Moore is dismayed that people love Rorschach so much.
Yeah, I know.
Because he was supposed to be an indictment of, but in my opinion, in a lot of ways, Rorschach was the hero of Watchmen because he's the one that wasn't going to go along with the lies. You know? I'm not saying he was a well-balanced person, but he was like, this is a lot.
He wasn't
right. Yes.
Although there's an interesting thing in Judge Dredd right now. They're doing. You'd be aware of this. In the States, you had the big thing of defund the police and all that stuff, where it was like, let's replace the police with social workers. Yeah, that's not going to work, kids.
Yeah, it's not going to work.
That's going to be a gigantic fucking disaster.
Well, here's my thing. So, I hope for the best, plan for the worst.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope people aren't going to commit crimes, but being a student of human nature and history, they're gonna.
Yeah.
And, you can't appeal to people's better nature because it's never worked. There's never been a society where everybody held hands and sang Kumbaya.
Yeah.
And
it exists in fantasy.
Yeah.
It exists in the song John Lennon wrote, imagine, but that's about where it exists. Like,
it'd be nice.
We would love it. Yeah. Now, here's the point anyway. So, defund the police. Unfortunately, someone in 2000 AD thought it'd be really interesting to do that into the judges. So they're going to defund the judges. And I'm sorry, like, I know about 2000 AD. I know there's a satiric element. But you read a lot of Judge Dredd. It ain't always a comedy. He ain't always the bad guy. Like, there's more than one level to Judge Dredd. And I just pray that they don't. Like, they've handled the democracy movement in Judge Dredd before. Mega City 1 voted whether they would hand the power from... Like, they've handled this story before. I just hope it's done well because, unfortunately, like you're talking with Marvel now, you get these writers who want to insert their personal politics in way too much. Not just a little bit.
Right, there's always going to be a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's like, what is the limit here, man?
Yeah. And like geniuses like Alan Grant and John Wagner are the guys who really built Judge Dredd. But now you've got these guys coming in now, we're going to defund the judges and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you're wrecking it. If you do that, you'll wreck it, And,
the premise of I mean, so then we'll wrap on this talking about multi-layered characters. Okay. So Judge Dredd, for the most part, started off, and I think for a long time, was sort of a parody of fascism.
Yes.
You got this guy who is unbending, unyielding, there's like one cop for every 500,000 people or something.
Everyone is a potential perp in that city. Yeah.
Right. And so you jaywalk and you're going to an ISO cube for 5 years, whatever. And he's the judge, jury, and the executioner. 100%. So from a parody, if you want to talk about fascism, you can use it for that. Or you could use it and say, what's it like to be one of these judges that has to be inflexible, in a world full of imperfect people.
Well, he's like Matt Dillon in Gunsmoke as well. Matt Dillon in Gunsmoke, someone like that. Like he's a paragon of virtue in a corrupt scenario,
And I just want to say, I'll get Rotten Tomatoes thrown at me for this. I'll be the iconoclast. The Sylvester Stallone Judge Dredd movie was actually pretty decent up until the point that they introduced his twin brother and it turned into all this other stuff. The first 20 or 30 minutes in that movie.
There's a lot of good stuff in that movie.
The first 20 or 30 minutes is a pretty straight up Judge Dredd story with great set design and costumes. Yeah, and then it goes off the rails with all this other stuff.
Rob Schneider doesn't help matters as well.
Yeah. They turned into a funny buddy cop movie and da-da-da-da. Of course, everybody loves Dredd that came out.
It's also good. Yeah. I wish it was. Yeah. I want more. Give me more.
Yeah, give me more, baby. But I mean, ultimately, I'm still one of those people. I just think my favorite Dredd moment is like gaze into the, whatever of death, and he's like gaze into the fist of Dredd, and he punches Judge Death right in his skull and shatters it. So that's another very I'm an uncompromising.
Well, there's a great moment in one Dredd story, which I always remember. Steve Dillon did the artwork. I want to say John Wagner wrote it. He's driving into the Undercity on one of these missions to save Mega City 1. Like one of his many missions, he's got to get something. Driving through the Undercity, and these kind of cripples and desperados and derelicts from the Undercity are all trying to pour at him, and he's just driving through. And he's he can't spare any time for these people. His mission is too important. Even if he could, he probably wouldn't. Right. It's just
it just keeps going.
Because he's a man on a mission. His responsibility is to Mega City 1. It ain't to the derelicts in the Undercity, And that's Judge Dredd. He's a man of fixed purpose. He's kind of it's almost like there's an element of Dirty Harry in there as well,
Yeah. Oh, big time. Yeah.
For sure.
To blow the perps away. Yeah. That's the only way to deal with this.
I've said to Chuck Dixon before. I said, reading, not just as a kid, for years. When they said to me, "Oh, it's all a parody," I was like, "Huh?" I was like, "A parody."
I think it started. It started that way, but it went over a lot of people's heads, including mine.
Yeah, and I was
the only reason I even
the bad guys. That's his job. I was taking it seriously, but it's great
as Paul Kupperberg says, and I've had Paul on the show. He's a well-established comic book writer with a long history. He's also very liberal. And so he sees that stuff. He'll call it a right-winger's wet dream, Right. So he wrote, and I like Paul a lot, I can differ with
right
people
guy,
on Pennywise's. And still be friends, because #adult, I'm an adult.
Definitely.
But he wrote Vigilante, which was, basically, and he was he hated the character. He's so he represented him as a wacko. This guy's a whack job. Yeah. And I think he ended up having Vigilante kill himself.
It was wow, okay, we're going dark here.
Paul Kupperberg.
He did.
I'm pretty sure he wrote that.
Paul Kupperberg's a good writer and a good guy.
He's had a lot of great runs. I recommend, if you like to dig into the minutia of comics, he kickstarts these books where he interviews, like this one. He interviewed Howard Chaykin, Tony Isabella, Paul Levitz, Joe Staten, more, and he interviews them, and then it's the transcripts of the interviews. And so he's got 2 or 3 of these books out. I live on this stuff, man. I love this behind the scenes. But this one's called Direct Conversations.
Direct Conversations. I do follow a bit of Paul Kupperberg stuff, and on his he does a lot of podcasts, and he's always interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, he's very interesting. Yeah, but he's definitely lands on the we're always talking about Mike Barron and Chuck Dixon. Paul lands on the liberal side. Yeah, he's on the opposite side.
In all fairness, man, I drift around. I don't really have any fixed basis. Who cares at the end of the day? This obsession,
tell me a good story.
This obsession we have with who the writer's voting for. I mean, it's. I couldn't care less.
I don't care.
I don't care.
Yeah, like personally, like that's one thing I've had to do as I get older. I separate the person from the creation.
Yeah.
I'm here to enjoy the creation. I don't care.
Yeah.
What I guess there are limits. I don't know what they would be. But there could probably be a circumstance where like I just cannot. Yeah. I cannot. I gotta give money or whatever. Yeah. But for the most part, I'm there for the entertainment. I don't care what the guy thinks. In fact,
we've had on the show. We've had Chuck on like 20 times. We've had James DeMatteis on several times. Brilliant guy. He's a liberal, like all the way, and honestly, after Chuck, he's probably my best guest.
Yeah.
I don't care because he tells stories, he remembers things, he's got a sense of humor, blah blah blah. At the end of the day, the body of work speaks for themselves.
Yeah. Well, Tony Isabella is very liberal. I had him on. I've had him on twice. I talked to him about comics once, and he's a big Godzilla fan.
Sure.
But he's like, you can always find common ground as adults. And like, he's like, some people would go, oh, he's a liberal and dismiss him. But like, Tony's like, I think that we should have characters that represent our readers. So if we have readers that are, and Tony Isabella, as far as I know, is not a Christian. Right. But he's like, we have readers that are Christians, so we need to have a Christian character, or at least have that element so they can relate to it. He had Johnny Blaze, the ghostwriter, going to church.
Did he really?
And he basically introduced a character that was basically Jesus. So
really,
I mean, that's more fair than I hear a lot of other writers doing.
I think it sounds interesting, frankly. I'm all in it for the story, man. That sounds like a fun story. I might check that one out.
Yeah.
And Johnny Blaze, for me, the original and the best ghostwriter. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, the other guy, the new guy that has the cars, has grown on me. But I'm Johnny Blaze.
What's his name? Is it something Rodriguez? Robbie Rodriguez? Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Reyes. Is it Reyes?
Reyes, yeah. He's good.
He has grown on me a lot, but and now they turned him into the all writer where he could drive anything. So they had this moment where like he ran into Venom, and he's like, "Yeah, no problem. I'm just going to drive your symbiote," and he took over his symbiote. So they made him like, it was actually kind of one of those, those cool comic book moments you have, like when you were a kid in the 80s. You're like, oh, that's so cool. Yeah. It was a cool comic book moment, but they made him too powerful, in my opinion. He's the all writer.
Right.
So,
wow, I didn't.
All right, I got to wrap this up, man. Just out of respect for you putting the time in, what was your third topic going to be?
It was just to say something that I know is close to your heart, Pull of Radiance and Secret of the Silver Blades. I just want to do a shout out to those original computer games. They blew my mind.
Oh yeah, baby. Yeah.
And I hear you mention it to sometimes the creators, and they're almost surprised that you mention it. But I am with you. They were my building blocks into playing computer games, and I still think of it, man. And they're great fun. And you know what? I've never played the last one, Pools of Darkness, and I have it on my computer. And I am going to sit down one day and play through it. Well, why not? To finish.
Yeah, those gold box SSI games are great. I have an ongoing game of Pool of Radiance that I fire up right now and continue playing every now and then. I seem to end up playing it a lot on Thanksgiving when I'm visiting. It's
a great game, man. Basically cleaning up the slums and then going all the way to the castle.
Yeah.
And Tyrannaxis.
It's great stuff. The first time, you probably heard me say this, but the first time I saw Pool of Radiance, like my head exploded because I was like, oh, I can play D&D and I don't have to have a group or a DM.
100%
and when I was growing up, it was hard to always have. Out of all my friends, even the ones that play D&D, I was more rabid about it than anybody else.
Me too.
So we didn't play D&D anywhere near as much as I wanted.
You couldn't corral them. It was like herding cats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember one time I got so mad. I cried. That's how mad I was.
Oh, dear.
I was like, 11 or 12.
Yeah.
And they had said, I'd said, hey, let's play D&D. And they said, well, let's play basketball. And so the agreement was if we play basketball for a couple hours, they play D&D. So I played basketball for a couple hours.
Yeah.
And it was time to finish basketball and play D&D. They welched and didn't do it. I got so mad. I was like, I was really mad.
Well, no, those games
I wasn't crying like I stubbed my toe cry. I cried because that's how mad I was.
I have a question for you. In Pool of Radiance, you know when you go to find Tyrannaxis in the castle at the end? You know, he's in the castle. There's actually like a clone of him that you can meet.
Yeah.
And did you ever meet this clone? He's like a he looks like him, but he's like super depowered. We encountered him on our first run through, and we thought we'd won. And it's like a clone thing. I don't think you always meet him. I think he's sort of like almost like
I don't think I've met him. Or if I did, it's been so long.
Oh, dude, I always remember it because it's such a beautiful little bait and switch. Also, something
it is because you think you've won. Yeah.
Also, something in Pool of Radiance, they had these journals, and some of the journal entries were not true, and they talked about this magical city to the east of the map or the west of the map, wherever it was. I spent hours combing every square of the wilderness area trying to find this bloody gold city.
That was the writers trolling you.
Yeah.
And that was the trick they were pulling on people who read journal entries that they hadn't been told to read yet.
And they trolled me hard there. But no, I'll always remember that game. We poured, I would say, hundreds of hours into it. Great game.
It was a great game. It was a great game. I don't remember running into him as a clone. I'm actually playing with a buddy of mine tonight. We have a Thursday night game. We're actually we play video games now with like his son and his brother-in-law, but I'll ask him if he remembers that because he's the one that actually introduced me to.
He's definitely there. He's in the maze when you're going toward the castle. So there's like a little maze and you can encounter him and he's like a super weak version. Like he looks tough, but he's actually statistically very weak.
That's interesting that you brought that. Do you know that there's a guy online called Matt Barton that does videos interviewing, and he wrote a book called Dungeons and Desktops, which talks about all these. And then he let me be the co-author on the second edition. I don't know if you know about that or not.
I have heard you mention it. Yeah, okay. That's cool.
So that's near and dear to my heart. So
well, dude, I brought it up because I just wanted to let you know that I am someone there with you on that journey.
Yeah. No, those are great games, man. I
enjoyed Secret of Silver Blades too, where you go down into the mines to fight the leech at the end.
Yeah, and then you had Curse of the Azure Bonds and all that. Yeah, Pool of Darkness. I'll tell you, if you like old school gaming, I'm playing right now. Troika about 20 years ago they adapted Temple of Elemental Evil.
Wow.
In the D&D 3.5 rules. Now it was very buggy.
Yeah. But
they've had these people come along, the Circle of 8. It's like a fan community, and they fixed all the bugs and they put out a fan mod so that as long as you have a legally obtained copy of the actual game, you can install the Circle of 8 mod pack. It fixes all the bugs and adds extra content.
Wow.
And I'm enjoying playing that. It's just doing this huge dungeon crawl through the Temple of Elemental Evil. So I've been doing that.
Sounds like fun. Do you play modern games like Assassin's Creed and stuff? Because I'm a huge Assassin's Creed fan. Do you play any of that stuff?
Some of them. Some modern games I'm really into.
Yeah.
But if it's a twitchy game, an Assassin's Creed,
Baldur's Gate 3? Baldur's Gate 3 is great.
Oh, yeah. It's just ridiculously good. Yeah. It's so good it's silly. It's just ridiculously good.
Yeah.
Ridiculously good. I mean, that's one of those games that pushes the whole genre ahead, right? Because it makes everything else that looks like it's out, behind the times. But yeah, what I was going to say about the Circle of 8 mod pack, you can also there's a content pack for it for Keep on the Borderlands, so you can also play Keep on the Borderlands.
So can you get that stuff on Steam? Is that on Steam?
Yeah, you could go what you do is you buy the original Temple of Elemental Evil Troika.
Yeah.
game from GOG or Steam, probably
Yeah.
GOG. I'm not sure
Yeah.
if Steam would have it.
Sure.
And then, for hardly anything, I don't know how
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
And then the mod pack, Circle of 8 mod pack is free. Like I said, I'll try to remember to put a link in the show
Wow.
notes.
Well,
So
man, you've been a mine
yeah,
of information. Didn't know about any of this.
yeah. Well,
Right.
yeah. I was going to ask. You gave me a chance to promote my book. What you mentioned earlier, I wanted to remember to ask you. You said you've written some novels. Now,
Oh yeah,
so
I've
tell
written
us a little bit about this.
three novels. The Des Moines series. The latest one was Des Moines Soul Fighter. She's a wandering sword for hire, and she's split between one reality and this fantasy reality, Firethorn, and she's trying to resurrect her dead lover. Is the basic element of the first book, Blade of Exile, and the adventures continue. And she's got like a flaming sword that comes out of her chest when she's like stressed. She's got like a metal hand, like she's a fighter. Yeah, they're intense books. Look, I strongly recommend people check them out. Yeah, Des Moines Soul Fighter. I've written 3 of them. I'm working on a 4th one now, which will come out. I've got a baby on the way, so it's not going to come out until well into next year. But yeah, no, they're fun fantasy, touch of sci-fi, touch of fantasy, and just all round action, man.
I'm looking at them now. So it's Des Moines, Demorn.
Yeah.
The
So
Asanti series.
the Asanti series, yeah, and I sometimes I just call it the Des Moines series, but yeah, the Asanti series, that's her home world. Des Moines Blade of Exile, Des Moines City of Innocence, but Des Moines Soul Fighter, the 3rd one, is actually a standalone, which you can read. So yeah, check it out, kids. Get involved.
From the moment David read a Grant Morrison comic at a tennis court as a teen. So do you remember what comic that was?
Yeah, I do. Zenith.
This is the author bio on Amazon, by the way.
The author bio. Yeah, Zenith. A Grant Morrison 2000 AD book just before he went to the States. And I remember reading it, and my mind was just blown. It was like late in the storyline where he's starting to pay off all the stuff from the beginning, and I was just like, wow, they're doing stuff that my brain's really responding to. And I was always done a little writing, and so I sat down and churned out 3 books, and the 4th one's on the way. And I'm really happy with them.
Right. So it says, watching TV in the dead of night, Des Moines and the Asanti series sprung into his mind. What were you watching? Do you remember?
Well, it was funny. I was watching Kick-Ass, actually. And not for the first time. Not for the first time. And my brain, as I was watching, when you're watching a movie a second time round, you sort of like, your brain can sometimes relax. My brain relaxed, and I suddenly came up with the idea of the Asanti series and the Innocents, which is the group of assassins that she belongs to.
Yeah.
And I sort of started building out for her the clubhouse, and there's sort of a parallel reality thing happening. And basically what happened is her girlfriend, she's a lesbian, basically her girlfriend got killed in the fantasy world as a fantasy character, and she's kind of heartbroken, and she's trying to resurrect her. And she's kind of literally haunted by her as well, and so that's how her story starts, and then it progresses through the 3 novels. It gets fairly intense. The fate of the world and universe can be at stake. The 4th one is going to be called Ultimate Fate, where she literally journeys and she sees the end of the universe, and then she comes back from that, and she's trying to avert that. So there's a lot of stuff going on in the Asanti series.
Who's doing your cover art? It looks really good.
Yeah, people, Deranged Digital did the cover art of all 3 of them. Just some people I found online. Now they've done a really good job, and they'll certainly be doing the 4th one when it comes. The
reason I'm saying is because, like, if these books, like if I saw them at the bookstore next to all the other, I would be like, they totally. I mean, they're high quality.
I'm happy with the covers. Happy with the covers, and we work hard on the covers. And I share an editor actually with Chuck Dixon, our same editor.
Is this Jay Manis?
Yeah, Jay Manis. She's been really helpful over the years, and she's been helping out on the new book as well. But they're fun, man. Like, to be honest, like, I'm super busy with work and super busy with the show. But and obviously now I've got a marriage and a kid coming, but I'm working on a 4th book, and that'll be out towards the tail end of next year. I've already written quite a big chunk of it, and but obviously you've got to do multiple drafts and stuff like that. And but I've got it all mapped out.
That's great.
Looking forward.
Yeah, I'll link to.
Thanks,
put the stuff in the show
notes. I appreciate that. Thank you for mentioning it.
That's cool. Yeah, no problem. I don't think I realized. If I did know, I had forgotten that.
Man, like you know what I mean. I mean, it doesn't pay the bills, but it does do okay for itself. But it's the kind of thing that it's a lifelong passion of mine. And look, I mean, I like to think of myself as a reasonably good writer, and certainly have a lot of ideas, and I enjoy it. It's very enjoyable. But the show Signal of Doom is quite time consuming in terms of like. Oh
yeah. I know. I know. Yeah. I think you have a higher publication frequency. Or
we come out weekly. We come out weekly. Yeah. I give Rich a break for Christmas for a couple of weeks. I let him off the lead for a couple of weeks, but then I corral him back. But yeah, no, it's a lot of fun as well. Like I have a lot of fun. To be honest.
That's good. Yeah. I'd like to get out twice a month, but right now, just the way life intersects, once a month is the rhythm I see.
Oh, well, we'd love you to come out. I look forward to your shows, man, because you delve into areas which I sometimes know nothing about, and it's always interesting. Which I think sometimes it's good to hear about stuff that you know a lot about and be like, I'm there on the journey. Like I know all the ins and outs. Like if you did a Pull of Radiance episode, I'm there. You know what I mean? Like I have the knowledge. But you go into like a lot of role-playing games that I honestly just don't know anything about. And it's just so interesting to hear the stories. Cool. Yeah.
Well, my favorite feedback is I didn't know about X until your show, and now I'm more interested in that. And that to me, that's a win. I'm like, that's like I want to follow my nose and talk about stuff that interests me and hopefully expose that stuff to other people is kind of my, and then also I try to think of like doing my show. One of the reasons I'm kind of informal, I'm not like, okay, and for the next question, Mr. Guest, I want to be like, if you're out to eat or if you're out in public and you hear an interesting conversation next to you and you want to start listening in, that's the tone or whatever that I'm trying to strike. So anyway,
I think you succeed.
Yeah, thanks, man. Well, all right, let's wrap up. Yeah, we've gone 2.5 hours and it's been a great conversation the whole time. Usually when I'm doing my show, I'm like, okay, that'll get edited out. I'm like, I'm hardly any of this is going to get edited out. It's all been golden, man. So, so it's going to be a long episode. But anyway, man, I appreciate you. Have a fun rest of your Friday in beautiful Sydney.
Thank you so much, and you have a good night. Yeah. And thank you to all the listeners out there who've tuned in for this whole show. Well done.
Yeah, well done, you. Yeah, you're a better person now with all this knowledge. So. All right, and everybody else, we will catch you next time on Shane Plays. Thanks so much for listening to Shane Plays Geek Talk. I certainly hope you enjoyed this journey into the things we love. For your convenience, show notes with helpful links for each episode can always be found at shaneplays.com. You can catch the podcast in several places, including on the blog at shaneplays.com, iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, Podbean, Amazon Music, Verbal, YouTube, and more. If you like what you hear and would like to support Shane Plays Geek Talk, you can do so for as little as $1 per episode on Patreon at patreon.com/Shane Plays. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time. Stay geeky, my friends.